Right, well, sound is speeding. Gabriel,
Camera speeding.
we're back in oh shit.
You messed up.
We're back in action.
We're trying new sounds this week.
Trying some rainforest. We're gonna incorporate rainforest sounds, right, into the background. We were kind of thinking about doing more of a making it seem like we're not where we are.
Here's the thing. Me and Dale have a huge list of films we love. And so from henceforth, every single episode, we're going to try to liven it up a little bit by bringing like a favorite movie soundscape.
Yeah.
This week, it's going to be Jumanji.
Yeah. So we're going to lay that right into the background.
Can I get a little insects in the background, Colin? Colin, I'm going to need some insects. Hit it right now. Give it to me.
Our relationship to the soundboard is it's a funny one, isn't it?
I really want some like crickets or something. Give it to me.
Some crickets?
Right now.
That was pretty good. Right?
I thought it was fantastic. I'm gonna give I'm gonna give some monkeys.
It's incredible.
Thank you.
It's incredible, man.
I've been waiting a long time to be able to do that.
What's up with this chair? We got this guest today, Mr. Peanut Bar, and
you know what? You know what he told us, Mr. Peanut Bar?
What did he say?
Mr. Peanut Bar said he was allergic to peanuts.
Ironic, isn't it?
He had to go. He forgot his EpiPen.
Oh.
He also ran off without his clothes.
It's a funny name, Peanut Bar.
You guys wouldn't notice, but Mr. Peanut Bar took off his wrapper and ran out the door.
How are you doing, Gabe?
I'm pretty good.
Why? You're good?
I'm good.
Nice.
Trying to recover from this terrible peanut wrapper joke, but
yeah, no, it was bad start.
Bad start. No, great start.
It was good. It wasn't good at all.
We're doing
it's like
terrible
Chevy
right
Chase in Caddyshack. You're not that good. I fucking love that movie, man. That movie is so absurd.
Thank you for introducing me to that film because it's
I forgot I introduced you.
It's so
incredible.
Good. It's a lot of fun.
It's incredible that
it's quotable.
People let them make that movie.
We've lost films that you can quote. You maybe get
films
one.
Right
you
now.
get one quotable film every like 2 years.
Every 2 years? Maybe every 5. Maybe.
What's the last quotable film you got off the top of your head?
Get Out is the one that comes to mind.
I thought, speaking of horror pics,
Rod says, "I'm T.S. motherfucking A. I handle shit." That's like one of the best lines in it. Because Rod, how'd you know I was here? I'm T.S. motherfucking A.
I was gonna
we
say,
handle shit.
Oh man, I was gonna
say
that's
a great fucking.
What's
line,
it called?
Right? And of course, it's Jordan Peele writing that line.
Bodies. What was that one line where Pete Davidson calls his ass out?
No, when Pete Davidson, I like the one when Pete Davidson is like, "Cause I look like I fuck." Like, you look at me, you're like, that guy fucks.
Yeah, for sure.
I thought that was a good line. Anyway,
it was a pretty good line.
Yeah.
All right, so we got to give the intro. Ready?
3,
2,
1. That was. It almost seemed like we weren't going to get the clap that we needed there, but we got it done.
I think we did. So welcome back to the Movie Addicts Podcast.
I'm wearing sunglasses today. That's just
yeah. Dale, if for those of you at home who don't know, Dale had a major surgery on his eyes.
Yeah.
He can't see right now.
Yeah.
And so the sunglasses are kind of lowering the light, making it a little dimmer.
Yeah.
And we wish him
I'm
well.
I'm legally blind at the moment.
We wish you well, Dale.
Yeah. Yeah.
We hope you a swift recovery.
Yeah.
And if you don't take those sunglasses off by the end of the episode, doctor said 3 hours is all he needed to come back.
Yeah.
And so we're going to keep you on this podcast for 3 hours, everybody. Just like last week.
The doctor said, don't take those off.
Your retinas will turn into dust.
Yep, they'll disintegrate. That's
Gone.
what he said.
Immediately.
So this might be TMI.
Go on.
I'll share this and then we'll move on. And it's not going to be a great segue, but I think...
I love terrible segues.
Speaking of doctors saying things that are scary.
Oh, no.
So
what
this is related to baby Colin and baby Colin's testicles.
Oh, good.
So I had a surgery. This is TMI. I'm just going to go for it.
All right.
I had a surgery when I was a child on my testicles.
Go on.
Because something was wrong with them.
Okay.
And the doctor said to my mother, this is why I got the surgery. The doctor said to my mother, "Yeah, well, you can get the surgery, or his testicles may turn black and shrivel up and fall off." And my mom was like, "What?" And that he wasn't being ironic. He was being serious.
Okay.
He was concerned my testicles were going to shrivel up.
So what happened?
So I got the surgery and
they didn't shrivel up.
Shrivel up and fall off.
Whew, that's a close call.
You have to wonder what was going on. I don't know to this day.
It sounds like it worked out in your favor.
Yeah.
So I'll put this out there. This isn't really TMI, but for those of you at home, I too had a potential surgery as a child.
Okay.
I broke my elbow in half in 3rd grade.
Okay.
Story for another day.
Ladies and gentlemen, that sounds painful.
I'm telling you, it was straight up in half at the elbow.
That's
snapped
crazy.
in half.
That's
my
amazing.
arm was so shocked and swollen that I couldn't move anything. The doctors thought, if I'm correct, the breaking of the bones severed the nerves to move my fingers.
Okay,
and
wow.
they recommended to my mother, you very well might need to amputate your son's arm. Are you prepared to do that? And my mom raised her eyebrows and said, no, we're not amputating my son's arm. We can figure it out, but we're not doing
we're
that.
not doing that.
And so, thank God for Mom, because...
yeah, holy shit.
Yeah, I would be one arm in Tano right now.
Yeah, one arm with Gabe, one arm in Tano.
That's all I'm saying, man.
That is fucking nuts.
It is.
They were like... See, that's what I am wondering about this doctor, is if this doctor who said the thing to my mom was kind of a quack. And was like saying something really extreme where it's like, okay, is there anything between that extreme scenario and
imagine
surgery?
if he just needed like a couple extra bucks to pay rent that month.
Yeah, see, that's
so
what
he's like, bring your son in. I'll put a couple stitches on. Nobody will be the wiser. We'll give him a little bit of prednisone to make him feel better.
Yeah,
and,
you do wonder. One does wonder if this doctor was a complete quack.
Yeah.
Corrupt. Not even, I guess we're suggesting maybe this guy was. But here's the thing, right? Is my testicles turned out fine.
I'm happy for you, Dale.
Something to chew on.
So,
happy Sunday.
Getting back to the movie.
We're talking about... we want to get right into this movie today, Gabe, don't we?
We do. We're trying a new format based on last week, which we enjoyed, sharing Barbarian with everybody. We want to keep pushing forward with basically breaking down the film plot-wise.
Yes.
Moment by moment. Right, and as necessary themes arise, critiques arise, we're going to keep on sharing our thoughts in line with the story unfolding.
Yeah.
So for those of you at home, spoilers are going to be starting any moment, because once we hit the ground running, the story will unfold.
Yes.
And you're welcome to join us and learn about our thoughts on the film Don't Worry, Darling.
We're talking Don't Worry, Darling, Olivia Wilde.
Don't Worry, Darling, Olivia Wilde, thank you. And for those of you who do not want to hear the plot spoiled, watch it first and come on back. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you have not seen Don't Worry, Darling yet, we're going to spoil the whole fucking movie. So, Gabe, let's talk filmmakers up top. Let's talk filmmakers of Don't Worry, Darling. And by filmmakers, I'm talking director, I'm talking writers.
Key creatives.
So, this is Olivia Wilde's film. Olivia Wilde directed it.
Second film.
This is her sophomore directorial effort, you could say. So her first directorial effort was Booksmart, which you haven't seen, I have seen. I really enjoyed it. It's a really great coming-of-age comedy. The actors are fantastic. The writing's really solid. It's funny, man. It's a good movie. And so this is a completely different effort from that, or at least it's trying to be. The writers of Don't Worry, Darling are there's 2 story credits on this thing. It's Carrie Van Dyke and Shane Van Dyke.
Okay.
Seemingly they are related. Carrie and Shane, and they are writing partners. They've worked on horror films, sci-fi, genre stuff, it seems. And so they have story by credits on this. And the main screenwriting credit is for Katie Silberman, who collaborated with Olivia Wilde on Booksmart.
Okay.
So Olivia Wilde and Katie Silberman are, by all accounts, the writing partners. They've worked together before. This is a completely different effort than Booksmart. Booksmart really is, it's a coming-of-age comedy through and through. And this is a thriller. It's really a thriller, I would say.
Yeah.
Kind of a horror thriller. In the vein of Rosemary's Baby, Stepford Wives are the two movies that I kind of got from this. Did you get any other kind of references?
Personally, this film also has, you mentioned sci-fi, right?
Yeah, sci-fi genre.
Sci-fi, definitely Matrix vibes.
Right.
In terms of like getting invested in like a simulation world.
Yeah.
And knowing the difference between the real world and the not real world.
Right. Absolutely. And so we should pull up the box office numbers for this thing.
Let's do it.
But yeah, any other thoughts, Gabe, on the filmmakers? Matthew Libatique was the cinematographer on this. Matthew Libatique, first of all, AFI alum. Shout out to him.
Shout out.
But he shot A Star is Born, for instance.
Okay.
Straight Outta Compton. And those are two of my favorite pieces of work from him. But any other thoughts from you on the
No, sir.
On the filmmakers? Okay, so let's get into box office numbers real quick. So the movie, Don't Worry, Darling. The logline is a 1950s housewife living with her husband in a utopian experimental community begins to worry that his glamorous company could be hiding disturbing secrets. So we're looking at worldwide right now. The movie was officially released on September 23rd, 2022. So we're looking at just over a week of release here. And worldwide, we're looking at 54,705,000.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, which is pretty solid. So I know it had a really great opening weekend. We're looking at like a 4,100 theater release.
What was the budget of the
wide
film?
Release. What?
What was the budget? Do you know?
The budget. Hold on.
Oh boy.
Sorry. It's a Warner Brothers flick.
Okay.
First of all, the budget was $20 million.
So they've already made back plus some.
I mean, potentially. $20 million could be the overall production budget. You have to account for all these extra marketing costs. Whether or not those are accounted for, it is a studio release. So it's possible that that is the production budget and that marketing is being included separately.
Okay.
Especially because it's a full-blown Warner Brothers studio release.
Yeah.
So they have clearly spent a fair amount of money on marketing this. So the idea that they've made their money back with $54 million it's potentially they have, but potentially they haven't.
Okay.
It's hard to say. That would be like insider information.
But to be fair, also,
yeah,
we're only a week in.
Yeah. To be fair, yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of films will have between a 4 and 10 week run. 4 for those who like just get pulled right out. 10 weeks for those who are killing it and may keep going.
Yeah, it's hard to say how this thing's going to fare in a week and then 2 weeks and 3 weeks from now. It's hard to say.
Okay.
And we'll get into that. But let's talk cast real quick.
Go on.
So we got Florence Pugh, who's excellent as Alice.
Always.
Florence Pugh, legend. Young legend in the making. Harry Styles, who people of course know, plays Jack. Chris Pine plays Frank. Olivia Wilde, who people also of course know. Same with Chris Pine. People know all these actors. Plays Bunny. Kiki Lane, who I personally didn't know, plays Margaret.
Okay.
Hema, I'm presuming that's pronounced Hema. Hema Chan plays Shelley, plays Frank's wife.
Okay.
Nick Kroll plays Dean. Sydney Chandler plays Violet. Kate Berlant plays Peg. Asif Ali plays Peter. Asif Ali is Peg's. Peter's
kind of hilarious.
Peg's husband.
Yeah.
Douglas Smith plays Bill. Timothy Simons plays Dr. Collins. And then I think the last major supporting role is Ariel Stachel plays Ted. And then we start getting into day players and such. So, yeah, I mean, any thoughts on the cast of this immediately? Casting thoughts up top.
So, if we want to talk about star power, this film has a ton of it.
Yeah. And you just reading the cast list, you can see that.
Yes, we have Olivia Wilde, who's been around since apparently her late teens on the show The O.C.
Yeah, she's been around. She's been acting for a while.
Chris Pine has been crushing it for a good 20-odd-something years as well.
Great actor.
Nick Kroll we know from comedy. Harry Styles we know from his musicianship.
Yeah.
And so you've got a ton of star power in this film. The next question after star power is regarding casting.
Yeah.
Is do they serve the story and the roles well?
I think it's also a genre question as well.
Well, whether they serve the story and the roles definitely is rooted especially in genre.
Yeah.
And in this case, this film was this marketed as a dramatic thriller?
Yeah.
And so based on the key creative team, based on the marketing, I feel their casting was not as strong as it could have been.
I agree.
After watching the film, I don't think there was necessarily a weak performance in the house. What I will say...
I disagree with you on that.
But. Sure. What I will say is that there were moments in the film that you couldn't tell if everybody was acting in the same film.
Yes.
And I think that goes back to the creatives. Is this moment supposed to be funny? No. Is this moment supposed to be scary? Yes. And vice versa. The film, again, billed as a dramatic thriller. There's times where, like, it's very clear that they could have leaned more heavily into comedy. After all,
But it's unclear whether they want to. Feels like there's an indecisiveness with the leaning into comedy bit.
Okay.
That's what I gathered.
Why don't you unpack the moments of comedy? Not the moments of comedy. The influence of the writers in regards to comedy.
Yeah. So Katie Silberman, who is clearly a really strong writer. Hence why Olivia Wilde's going back to her for her sophomore directorial effort. The script in Booksmart, which is Katie Silberman's script first and foremost. That script is really tight, and it's a straight up, like I said, it's a coming of age comedy. Emphasis on the comedy. The coming of age part is really about the character development. And so it's operating in this niche comedy subgenre, and it's jokes. And that's clearly something Katie Silverman is good at. It's really interesting characters. It's an interesting world that feels defined. And then it's jokes until the movie's over. And it has a little flavor. It has a little, like, Judd Apatow flavor to it, where there's, supposed to be key character development, especially with the two main characters. It feels a little super bad, even, Booksmart does. And so, yeah, Katie Silverman's... What I will say is that clearly in Katie Silverman's other credits are really comedy-centric credits. So clearly that's something she's very good at. It's something she's made money doing. It's something she's made a really good living doing. And then you come to Don't Worry, Darling. And we even, read in that little interview, the Olivia Wilde, Maggie Gyllenhaal thing.
From interview.com.
Yeah. It's called interview.com?
Pretty sure.
Holy shit, that's weird. Okay. Anyway, in that interview, she's mentioning bringing Katie Silberman on and how they're a writing team for this project. It makes you wonder whether Katie Silberman, to be honest, is right for this project. Is what it makes me wonder, because you can feel Katie Silberman, the writer, wanting at certain moments, and Olivia Wilde mentions this in that interview, wanting at certain moments to for comedy to rear its head, and this is a tough film for comedy to rear its head in. The film's taking itself very seriously, not that that's an inherently bad thing. The film's taking itself seriously. The subject matter is pretty fucking dark and grim. There's numerous reasons why comedy shouldn't necessarily rear its head in this movie, or that it's going to be very difficult for comedy to rear its head in this movie. Comedy is something that it does feel like it requires in a movie. As a storyteller, as a writer, you have to create space for it. Ultimately, comedy can't just come out of. It's interesting talking about this on the heels of Barbarian, where comedy does seem to come out of left field, But I guess we would have to articulate why that works in Barbarian, why it might not work in this.
I'll step in and you tell me if this resonates with you.
Sure.
It feels like you're saying comedy needs to be earned. And what I mean to say is in Barbarian, we spend the first act basically setting up a relatively realistic world.
Yeah.
With a couple uncanny set pieces.
Yes.
That leads to a very grisly ending.
Yes.
After that all takes place, tension release cycle, after the release, the audience needs space to laugh. They need to ease back into the second act. And so, great job, filmmakers, getting Justin Long in to get everybody reinvested in the next part of the film. Here,
well, that's a great way to put it,
here, because there's a lot of fits and starts to the beginning of the film, they spend a good 45 minutes establishing the world from Florence Pugh's perspective. There's really, the most fun, silly part of the film is literally the opening frame. All the neighbors are at someone's house, they're getting drunk together, really a good time. It's high spirits.
High spirits, for sure.
And not necessarily funny, but to start the film on kind of like the tail end of a release cycle. All right, everybody, let's relax. This is a great world. This is a happy world. This is a sexy world, according to Olivia Wilde.
Yes.
That's a great setup. But then we spent time in tension for like 50, 60 minutes. And when we're spending all that time, in my opinion, you would have earned the comedy, but the tension is confusing. The tension is lacking clarity. In the time spent building the rules of the world, we're not really sure where the tension is coming from.
Yeah.
And so the tension never earns a release and therefore never really earns a joke.
I think that's a great way to put it, Gabe. And I think the tension becomes really obvious after that first scene. To me, saying the tension becomes obvious after the first scene is actually misleading. I think the tension is obvious even in the first scene. Is that it's 6 men and women, three women, 3 men, 3 married couples hanging out, and you feel in that first scene, even though they're all having a bunch of fun, you feel this division between the sexes that feels exclusive. It doesn't feel, there's something sort of natural about it. The guys are going to go chat with the guys, the girls are kind of talking, with the girls, but at the same time, there's something about it that feels awry. Okay. It feels exclusive. It feels like the guys are talking about, they're talking shop. They're talking shop, whatever the fuck that means. And I thought, by the way, it was interesting, something to note in the sound mix in that first scene, the guys are really high in the sound mix and the girls are really low. So you can really hear the guys, they're really loud. You can barely hear what the women are saying, which was very intentional sound mixing on Olivia Wilde's part. Like, that's clear. That's a director kind of, working with their re-recording mixer to like make sure that that's working. And I did think that was an interesting choice. But then there's tension already present in that scene. Like, the movie is kind of showing its hand right away, I felt like. And it's very hard to get invested in. I got really invested in the tension and could not really get invested in the romanticism of the world.
Okay.
That's where the movie kind of lost me right away, to be honest with you.
So you think there should have been more time spent falling in love with the world?
Yeah, there should have been more investment in why would someone want to live in this world?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you an example from one of my favorite movies, Schindler's List.
Okay.
There is a whole sequence at the beginning of Schindler's List. I think this is kind of genius shit, where we spent all this time with Schindler, with Oskar Schindler, and we spent all this time where he gets dressed up. He's drinking, he's smoking, he goes to like this like Nazi club, social club. He's hanging out, he's having a great time, the women love him, he's sexy, he's cool, he has prestige, people respect him. And what that sequence is that you're understanding why would someone want to be a Nazi?
Got it.
What's the sell?
Okay,
yeah, Nazi, we know about the Holocaust, we know about all the horrific things, but why would Oskar Schindler want to be that? Why would a human being want to be that?
Why would he not question it as a normal part of his life?
And think about it. We're talking about fascism, right? We're talking about like 1940s fascism
More
that led to the death of
specifically-
millions of people. But go on.
More specifically, people who are operating within that paradigm.
Yeah.
So we have a character operating in a leadership role.
Yes.
Under a fascistic society.
Yes.
And then now we have these characters, and Don't Worry, Darling, who are living in otherwise sounds kind of unnatural. They live in a desert oasis, suburbia.
Which I'm immediately going, okay, you live in the desert, okay.
It feels kind of weird and creepy. Like,
yeah,
who the
it
fuck
already
does
feels,
that?
it's already nodding its head to like, this is weird. Yeah. So,
And
yeah.
how does a society, arguably, this is a town of, we could say, as many as 5,000 people.
Yeah.
It could be more. It's probably not many less. But we'll say a small suburban community.
Yeah.
That lives in the middle of the desert.
Yes.
What is
It's
this?
already strange. Yes. And so I think that there's already too many choices set in motion at the top of this film that are nodding too early, showing the hand too early, the film's hand too early, in that we're already going, wait, this is fucked up. What the fuck's going on here? And I think even down to the minute choices of the idea that it's this 1950s, 1960s world. I think it's very hard in a contemporary context to show a 1950s era world. People have already seen shows like Mad Men. People have already seen countless movies about,
They've kind of rewritten
yes.
the glory of the 50s and 60s.
Yes, like I don't know, and you and I talked about this in the car.
Yeah.
Who walks around saying, God, I wish it was the 1950s?
Yeah.
Who walks around saying that nowadays?
Because it's
I don't
not
know
just
that people
like
do.
it's not just girls in poodle skirts and roller skates
Yes.
anymore. It's like communism and
Yeah.
nuclear
The Second
fear,
World War, kind of post Second World War.
post Second World War IV,
which technically
the economy.
was it's branded as an era of prosperity, but
Right, but even
people,
then, like-
people had tons of people had died, people lost their husbands, they lost their
Yes,
families,
absolutely.
all these things.
The point is, today, after the various amounts of media that our culture's been exposed to after 60-something years, we are not... we don't just look at the 50s and the 60s with rosy retrospection.
No, I don't think we do.
See the
ugliness.
the ugliness that was present at times. And by the way, this is not pointing at the 50s and the 60s. Every decade has ugliness and beauty. But trying to sell us on the world, it would have been nice if it felt a little less uncanny. Like, even for instance, have we seen Back to the Future?
Of course.
Okay.
Classic.
So Back to the Future, we know that part of the family, whether it's in the future, present day, or the past, all revolves around this ascension that all around this premise that we live in a town that is growing in different ways. At one point,
Yes.
it was farmland. Now it's suburbia.
Right,
now it's
right, yeah.
changed again.
Yeah.
And it would be kind of nice if the world that Alice and Jack, our protagonists, Florence Pugh and Harry
Yeah.
Styles, if Alice and Jack, maybe in the opening frames, were moving to this town.
Yeah.
And we've got booklets, we've got pamphlets. Congratulations on your new job. You are being promoted to the exclusive suburban society.
Yeah.
And so everyone's kind of like, well, this is kind of far away. It's okay, honey. This is going to be exciting. This is going to be good for us. And you know what? I hear the people who work their way up to the top, they get to move to a bigger house that's even back in society or something like that.
Another flaw in this. We'll be right back with the Movie Addicts podcast. We're getting into it here. We're getting into it.
Hello.
Oh, sorry, boss.
It's all good.
Yes, we'll be right back with the Movie Addicts podcast. And we're back with the Movie Addicts podcast. So, Gabe, you were making a great point there.
I was just going on to say that if we wanted to have more buy-in from the audience perspective, who's already kind of jaded towards a weird, culty suburbia in the middle of the desert.
That's another thing. People have seen so many cult movies
Yes,
and shows, man.
exactly.
It's like something Americans are obsessed with it.
Again, Dale and I are... let me fix this mic. Dale and I are coming from the perspective that the filmmakers want
Yes.
the audience to experience
Yes.
buy-in and beauty.
Yes.
So they can subvert that
Yes.
with uncanny thriller elements.
Yeah, for
we're
sure.
assuming they want to do that. Or we're even saying that this would be a better way to let the story unfold. that's not what they do, and maybe it's not what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I and I'm sensing Dale feels that it would have been a stronger hand to play a world in which let's purposefully acknowledge this is creepy and weird. Let's acknowledge that regardless, there is prosperity and beauty in what's happening. And let's get the audience getting the experience of moving to this place and why it's so amazing.
I think the one hint of the buy-in of that experience is, so now we're kind of easing into the plot.
Yes.
So the one experience I did have of that buy-in is like, oh, how nice would it be to just have all your needs taken care of? You don't have to worry about paying. You know, it doesn't seem like they worry about paying rent. They get drunk on a Saturday night with their friends. You know.
Yeah.
You know, there's you know, she gets to see her husband every morning. There's, you know, they get the sunshine. She gets to see him again at night.
They're sharing meals
there's
together.
There's tranquility,
Yes.
quote unquote. Like, there's all these things that are sort of hinting at maybe there's a sort of a buy-in to the what the appeal is of this world.
Yes.
But then it feels very thin. It doesn't feel fully fleshed out. And I guess the buy-in would really have to be from her perspective. It would have to be from Alice's perspective. Why does Alice, why does Alice want to be here, quote unquote? I mean, I guess the theme of consent in that whole thing is sort of comes back later. But why? Let's just presume she wants to be there. Why?
Because she loves Jack and she
Yes.
wants to be with Jack.
Yes. And I think so the movie at the beginning sets up, I mean it's and I think the movie is perhaps, to be honest, leaning a little too much on, especially at the beginning of the movie. Okay, so you're right. She loves Jack, that's why she's staying there. She loves Jack because why?
Well, in my opinion, what they want you to believe is she loves Jack simply because they really enjoy each other's company. Other couples in the community
Explain what that means and what the movie shows that to be.
Other couples in the community have moved on and had kids, and there's kind of this sense of like, we're getting tired on our relationship. You know, at this point, I'm self-medicating because I'm kind of bored with my spouse.
Which is kind of what Bunny is.
Bunny kind of suggests that with her husband
She's drinking all
Dean.
the time. And,
Bunny's Olivia Wilde. Dean is Nick Kroll.
Yes.
But it's also mentioned that, like, wow, you guys really seem like you're still in your honeymoon phase.
Yes.
And it's not really said how long how long Jack and Alice have lived in this community.
Yeah.
But them suggesting you're still in the honeymoon phase isn't condescending. It's not, isn't that cute? You're just married and you're still happy. It's, really? You guys aren't going to have kids? You're still going strong and enjoying each other's company?
Right.
And the film shows they eat together. They have lots of sex together.
Yes.
They share a home. They enjoy their mornings and their nights.
And not only that, like, Jack takes care of her sexual needs. It's not just like anyway, but yeah.
So you were getting at why would they be happy together? Why are we establishing this love? What's keeping her there? So Alice and Jack are happy, I think, because they genuinely enjoy each other's company.
Yes. I just felt like the movie's leaning too hard on the casting of Harry Styles, just the casting alone, to help push that buy-in along. Because I think they're counting on people, like Harry Styles is like this dreamboat.
Everybody loves Harry Styles.
Everybody loves him. Wouldn't you want to be with Harry Styles? And I think the movie is really like, they're really counting on just Harry Styles being in the movie and playing that role of Jack to help the buy-in. And to me, I'm like, Because at the end of the day, okay, cool, we love Harry Styles, but he's not Harry Styles right now. He's Jack.
Not only that, Jack as a person,
they
never really have like deep, constructive conversations in the film. Like
Never.
Basically, it goes, "Hi, honey, I love you. What are you cooking? Oh, this is incredible.
Yes.
I'll see you when I get home from work. Okay,
Super
I'm home
thin.
from work.
Yeah.
Honey, are you okay? Well, actually, no. Something's wrong. Oh, honey, nothing's wrong. We'll be fine.
Yes.
And then the next day starts.
Yes, exactly.
Which, again, to be fair, if this film is deconstructing, analyzing a relationship between the sexes that is unhealthy, and it's putting the desire for some men to be in like leadership roles that lead to like unfair power balances.
Yeah.
Then it's definitely putting a mirror on that.
Yes.
But in my opinion, if we want to have buy-in on our central protagonist relationship,
yes.
we need to see that she loves him, as you were saying, more than just a fan or an idol or
Yes.
a doting wife, but really, well, no, Jack's different. Jack's different from everybody. Jack knows my needs. Jack loves me.
And
Jack sees me.
Yes, yes. And we don't get the sense that he does bring anything to the table necessarily that these other husbands around.
As a storyteller, I would even go as far to say is if you can establish how well and intimate the relationship is emotionally, how well Jack does see her, it becomes that much more devastating when he starts to focus more on his promotions at work and justifying them as an opportunity to enrich the relationship, which eventually leads to basically an irreparable gap between them.
Yeah. And so do we want to let's move forward to the Margaret component of the plot, because that's when we get the real sense. That's when, like, okay, fun time's over, something's like seriously wrong is that beat.
So just so everybody knows, the film starts, we're laughing, we're having a good time, Bunny's at the party, we have Alice and Jack, we have Dean, we have Peter, we have Peggy, all these people are having a good time. The film settles into a couple other moments where we see what the world's like, everyone's waking up, saying hi at the cul-de-sac, good morning, goodbye, kids come home from school, la-di-da, and there's a few moments in the film where it almost seems like something's off, but we overlook it, and then we overlook it.
Yes.
And eventually we come to a point where, by the way, let's establish some more of the world. All the men and their wives get a special invitation to the leader of this community, Frank.
Yes, and they're basically, Frank is throwing a pool party.
Yep.
All right, it's very simple. So Frank's throwing this sexy pool party, you know, it's everyone's drinking.
There was a topless woman at the party, wasn't there?
Yeah, which is just completely
confusing and random.
It's completely random.
But it does, you know, suggest that, like, Frank has this weird
that's interesting. Okay, yeah.
Apathy slash like apathy is the kind of word that I want to use in terms of he's so comfortable, he's so desensitized to the objectification of women, because there's other moments in the film where, like, there's this woman doing burlesque and stripping.
Yes.
I don't want to derail the plot of where we're at, though.
Yeah, in that, by the way, I had sort of differing thoughts on that.
Okay.
We can let's talk about that when we get to the party.
So the party's happening. Yeah, there's two parties.
So there's the pool party, and so we're yet to meet Frank. People are hanging out. This is when Bunny says, "Oh, Jack and Alice only have time for each other." This is when they're talking about why wouldn't you have kids, all these things.
Yes.
And this is all leading into, basically Jack kind of holding court. I'm sorry, Frank holding court.
Big speech.
And so we haven't met Frank. Frank is played by Chris Pine.
Yes.
He descends from the fucking terrace. He comes down. He gives this cool speech. He's got his beautiful wife, Shelley, right?
Yep.
He's got Shelley. He gives this sort of ethereal speech, this
progress forwards. We live in the town of
Victory.
And unlike the rest of society, who they choose to be a part of, basically, he's basically saying everyone else is regressive but us.
Yes.
We are doing the good work. We are making a better world. And thank you for choosing to live in victory and work for victory, because we are moving the world forward.
And I think this scene is you're meant to see kind of everyone's differing reactions to what's being said, or to Frank's presence even.
Yes.
And you see that Bunny really buys into it. Bunny and Dean, right? Bunny and Dean are really they have fully bought into Frank's messaging, living in victory. they love it, and everyone else is kind of buying in too. But Bunny and Dean stand out as like these are the true people who are following. Like they see Frank as like God essentially.
Yes.
And then as Frank's giving his speech, there's sort of a moment in the back with this woman Margaret, and what does she say? She says, "This is all." She says something very simple to the effect of like,
"We shouldn't be here.
We shouldn't be here. This is wrong. We shouldn't be here." All this stuff, right? And her husband, I forget her husband's
He basically, name. I don't remember.
Ted, is that right?
We could look it up real quick.
Hold on,
we interrupt this programming for a brief cast
Ted,
reflection.
I believe it is.
Nice, nailed it.
Yeah.
So Ted grabs Margaret by the arm.
Yeah, pretty sure it's him.
And kind of just steals her away. And the party stops for a second. Everyone's kind of uncomfortable. Why did Margaret say that?
Yeah.
And then Frank kind of just recovers and is basically like, why should we be here? Why are we all in the desert? And why are we choosing this life? And he goes on and he continues to sell people on victory and bring everybody back to the good party time.
Yes. And, yeah, so Ted sort of, after Margaret says her Margaret also seems like, she seems disturbed, like visibly disturbed.
Yes.
And so Ted sort of pulls her away from the party, like, all right, something's wrong with her, I'll get it, in this very, like, controlling way, right?
Yes.
And
now, it is established, what do we know about Margaret recently?
She lost her son.
And why did she lose her son?
Because she walked with him out into the desert.
Yes.
And there's an implication that, like, he died of...
He died of exhaustion.
Exhaustion, overheating, something
and
like that.
Everybody writes that off as Margaret is a bad mother.
Yes.
Who
all gets blamed on her.
She's experiencing a psychological break.
Yes.
So she needs therapy and recovery, and now she's on medicine.
And all the focus is put on her, and none of the focus is put on Frank or any of the strange things that are going on in Victory, right?
Yeah.
And so there's sort of that whole pool scene is really meant to it's really meant for like more world setup. That's when we're introduced to Dr. Collins.
Yes.
And Dr. Collins is what is he? Like, who is Dr. Collins?
Dr. Collins as a figurehead represents, I would say, the branch of medical science that reinforces, I guess, the standards of like a healthy outlook on victory.
Totally.
Basically, anytime people are feeling sick, they're feeling like something is wrong, he'll roll up, he'll prescribe the medicine, he'll take care of them. In the two instances that are really mentioned in the film, or rather that are plotted in the film, it's regarding mental health.
Yes.
Specifically with Margaret and with Alice. In both instances, it's noted that he is there to ease their discomfort.
Yes.
And in both instances, the guy just feels weird.
There's something off about him, right? He's played by Timothy Simons, who's best known for his role in Veep. He plays a really, really funny, absurd, wild character in Veep. And yeah, there's something off about Dr. Collins. It's later revealed, kind of, I would say more specifically, what his role is, but he seems like he's almost like Frank's right-hand man. Yeah.
And he also works for the Victory Company. He's not just some altruistic doctor. He's somebody who kind of keeps people in line.
Totally. And so there's also this scene, very obscure scene at the pool party where Jack and Alice have sex in Frank's bedroom.
And it's not meant to be some random gritty, gross moment where, like, they're just doing something wildly inappropriate. It's meant to be like, again, we're a young couple, we're in love. These great people invited us over. Nobody's in the house. We want to be real sneaky and have some fun together.
Yeah.
And they do. They're a little bit sneaky and nobody's around. And it's, I'm not going to say good or bad, but
then
they're in a safe space and nobody's interrupting. but then the camera essentially is set up on a medium 2 shot where Jack is on top of Alice, leaning her against the wall.
Yep.
Jack's back is to the camera.
Yeah.
Alice is looking in the direction of the camera. And then that medium 2 shot reverses to Frank.
And Frank's watching them have sex. It's this very like voyeuristic thing.
And they make eye contact.
They make eye. So Alice and Frank make eye contact.
Yes.
Jack does not know that Frank's watching.
And I
don't
think one thing that I had trouble with in this scene was, one, how willing the filmmakers were to just immediately, within the first 15 minutes of introducing us to the Frank character, cast him in a very, like, basically disturbing light. Like, it made it hard for me to have buy-in in this world when I feel like I'm supposed to be looking up to this guy, and immediately we're already seeing him being disgusting. And the other thing, too, that felt difficult, and I guess this is kind of a reflection of, again, Alice being put in the position of subservient wife, is her husband is trying to be intimate with her physically. They're not doing like any like literal sex. They're, I guess we can say, they're on first base, second base even. And so when she makes eye contact with Frank, she doesn't say anything.
No.
And Frank doesn't say anything.
Right.
And it's one of those weird moments where it's like, is anyone going to say anything?
Right.
No.
Totally. Yes.
And I guess Alice was just so concerned to embarrass Jack in front of her boss. And Frank didn't say anything that suggested, this is really inappropriate. I'm your boss and you're in my house. So it was kind of a weird moment where she...
Yeah.
She couldn't. She felt there was nothing to say.
Yeah.
So it was just a weird moment. And did you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you broke it down pretty beautifully. So then, after the pool party, there's the trolley scene, which is where the movie, I would say, really starts to heat up, quote unquote.
Plot-wise, for sure.
Plot-wise. And
up until this moment, it's been set up. We learn all the characters, and we learn that there really is no central conflict other than Alice is close friends with Margaret. Something is wrong with Margaret, and meanwhile, the world, something doesn't feel quite right about the world. So she's taking the trolley across town. She chooses not to go shopping. All the ladies get off on all the shopping spots except for her.
Good detail.
Because she wants to see what's at the end of the trolley.
Yes. She's passing it off as to the trolley driver. The trolley driver is a little confused as to why she isn't getting off. And she's like, I just want some fresh air. Just want to be out and about. And she wants the trolley driver, to keep going.
Yes.
Down the road.
Right?
What's that?
Through the desert.
And the trolley driver gets really nervous, and he's like, I'm not allowed to, that's not my route. I'm not allowed to go out there. And as he's kind of getting nervous and that scene is escalating, Alice looks out the window, and there's a, what is it, call it like a 1940s, 50s,
it's like a biplane.
Yeah. Flying, smoke
painted
trailing
red,
out, painted red. It's crashing into the hills.
And weird, we actually saw in the film earlier, Margaret staring into nothing on her front lawn, holding the same plane in her hand, and her son used to play with a similar plane.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a weird thing where
so that's
I'm seeing something that maybe Margaret saw in the desert too.
Yes.
And so she felt the need to get off the trolley and investigate.
And what is that plane meant to represent? I think that's what's unclear to us.
I wish I could tell you. It's tough because the story suggests, perhaps, when I was in time watching the film, this plane represents a piece of society beyond victory.
Yeah.
That everybody in town is just outside of reach. And if only you could come in contact with the outside world, maybe it would shed light as to the purity of the world they live in.
Yes.
But the problem is, for reasons that we'll break down later in a few more moments, it feels kind of like a broken metaphor when the plane in this world is just a plane. It's never explained where it comes from.
Yes.
And let's go on to say what happens
Yes.
when she goes into the desert to see the wreckage.
So she goes into the desert and she gets off the trolley. The trolley driver is really trying to convince her not to do that. But
also, I'm just taking a note, by the way.
It's all good. She gets off the trolley. She starts walking into the desert. We sort of, eventually she gets to... nothing happens with her necessarily in the desert. She's just out there. And she walks all the way to the headquarters that has been set up earlier, the headquarters on the hill.
Okay.
So there's a headquarters that all the men drive out to go to work every day. None of the women know it's in there. And so she's walking out there, and...
By the way, at this point, it's suggested that she's been walking for a very long time.
Yes.
She's exhausted. She has not found the plane.
No.
And so she's too far to turn back to town. The only thing she could think is, my husband and all the coworkers are at headquarters. I will go there for help.
Yeah. And so she walks up to this. The headquarters is basically this dome. It's like at
the top of a rock.
It's a dome at the top of at the top of
it has almost like
a rock face.
A religious sense to it.
Yes.
Being at like the summit of a mountain.
Yes. And she she walks up to it, and there's a glass door, a glass pane, that's supposedly like an entrance, and she presses her face up against it, and
she basically passes out.
And then she wakes up in her bed. Sorry, go on.
The film makes it feel like that she touches a door, and before she's able to get inside, she faints from exhaustion.
And then there's kind of a sequence of hallucinations that comes into play here,
which we're going to break down for you right now, because newsflash, these hallucinations have actually been happening multiple times up until now. In fact, the start of the film are these hallucinations. The hallucinations include the center of an eye and the what do you call it? It's not the retina, it's the colored part.
The iris.
The iris. The iris expanding as eyes do in surprise or exposure to light.
Yes.
A little bit of like a red substance, potentially blood, spreading out in a potentially a microscopic vision. And then there's also those women dancing. The article talked about them. They're like 1930s, 40s women in films where they do like the beautiful choreography. Yeah. And they're kick dancing in perfect synchronicity.
Yeah, Olivia Wilde references a specific filmmaker in that interview.
Burt something.
Buxby
or
something?
Buxby, yeah, something like that.
Shit, it doesn't
so
matter,
basically, these images are flashing.
It does matter, but anyway, go on. Let's keep it pushing.
Yes, these images are flashing. They are in black and white, and then in color, and then in black and white, and then in color, and then fades to black. And then she wakes up in bed, back at home, not at the headquarters, not in the desert, not in a hospital for, her supposed dehydration. She's just in bed, like nothing happened.
And it's now it's night.
It's nighttime. Jack's been home for a couple hours.
So she's hearing like banging kind of sounds from the kitchen, basically.
Yeah. He's trying to be a good husband and cook for her.
Yes.
And surprise, he can't cook. It's terrible.
He can't cook for shit. He doesn't even know to boil potatoes.
Potatoes for mashed potatoes.
This ridiculous. Yeah. Which, by the way, are you fucking kidding me, Jack?
Which might be a suggestion to like later in the film, how the guy's like really, unfortunately, kind of useless and not able to provide for the relationship. But wishes he could,
no, for sure,
for
sure.
And chooses the most cowardly way to provide for Alice.
Yes.
So, that said, basically she wakes up, oh, what a great husband, he's trying for me, la la la, thank you. By the way, I had a really weird vision and I'm sick. Oh, I've been home? Yeah, honey, you came home on the trolley. What?
No, he says,
He says that. He suggests.
Oh, okay, but he also says you were already asleep.
Yes, exactly.
When I got here, you were in
the
bedroom.
It's kind of one of the first moments in the film where like you get the sense that he's kind of gaslighting her, you know, and it's not in an aggressive situation. He's not doing anything per se that makes her feel unsafe, but it is making her second guess herself.
Yes,
and
I would say he succeeds in this scene to make her second guess
absolutely does
herself.
Because she is insisting, and he is insisting otherwise.
Yes,
and ultimately, what happens is he embraces her, he kisses her, she kisses him back. He basically says, "You know what happens when I have weird dreams? I eat something. I get hungry." Right, exactly. Yeah. And so they munch on a carrot, really cute together. It becomes a laugh. And ha 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 ha. I went to the desert, did I? It was a dream. Back to reality.
Yep. And the next day comes along and the phone rings.
After everyone goes to work.
Yes. The phone rings, and who's on the other line? It's Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
And Margaret's really saying, like, you saw what I saw. We got to get out of here. Didn't you see what I saw? And I guess she's referring to, like, the plane and the headquarters and all this shit, right?
And Alice is like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about. Please don't call me."
Yes.
Hangs up the phone.
So Alice is now doubling down. We'll be right back with the Movie Addicts podcast. We're going to keep this thing's heating up here. You know what's actually nice, Gabe, is... we'll be right back with Movie Addicts podcast. It's not that hot in the attic right now.
Also true.
We're back with the Movie Addicts podcast. It's really nice that it's, nice and temperate in the attic. Yeah, man. So Alice really doubles down on...
Well, she doesn't. She doubles down in the sense that, like, please don't call me. It was a dream. It was... let's adjust this mic. It was a dream. Everything's fine. And she hangs up the phone. And then she second guesses herself and goes outside to check on Margaret, because Margaret's her neighbor, like 2 doors down.
Yeah.
And Margaret is not in the house.
There's something that happens in between the call from Margaret and what we're about to talk about. I can't remember exactly what it is, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But I want to let's touch on that, because I have a feeling I know roughly what it is. There's a lot of visual sequences that are built into this movie that are not plot. They are plot related, but they're thematic sequences. They're visual sequences. The dancing stuff.
Yes.
What other the themes of her being underwater, her drowning, all these things.
I was going to say, maybe she was cleaning and the
cleaning
walls
stuff.
Closing in.
Yes. So I think after the Margaret call, I think you're right. I think she's cleaning the windows, and that's when it's the one of the images, definitely from the trailer, one of the standout images of she hallucinates that the walls, the glass windows are sort of closing in on her and pushing her up against a wall where she can't move.
Yeah.
And so yeah, something key to note in all this plot stuff is that there's all those thematic visual sequences that are sort of breaking up the plot. And in my opinion, I don't know how you felt about those sequences.
Go on.
I thought they got very repetitive very fast. And I basically another one that we're forgetting is the eggs thing. She's trying to make eggs.
That was really weird.
She's trying to make eggs Benedict or something. And the eggs are
there's no yolk inside
hollow.
of them.
There's nothing in the eggs. And it's sort of freaking her out. But then I felt like those visual thematic sequences became... They're supposed to be sort of like these almost musical visual interludes between plot points. And I felt like I was just getting the same themes from all of them. It was almost like all of them could have been one. It's almost like Olivia Wilde and Katie Silverman should have chosen one visual metaphor to drag out across the script and incorporate, rather than a bunch of different metaphors, visual metaphors that are getting at the same thing.
You do have to remember that those visual metaphors are tied into the literal fabric of why she's there.
Explain that.
Well, I don't want to spoil anything in the plot, but later on the film, we find out that these thematic images that aren't tied at all to any of the current action have actually been an active presence in Alice's reality. They're not just in her mind. They're not just something random that's being thrown at the audience in order to paint an extra color on the world. It's supposed to be an active part of her reality.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that later. In Dale's defense, did we need them 4, 5, 6 times before the crux of the plot? Did we need them in these random spots? Even going further, if we're trying to establish rules to the world and that something is wrong, well, the something that is wrong is manifesting in all these strange different ways. Eggs not cracking, walls and rooms changing their shape and size unexpectedly, Alice looking in the mirror and seeing her best friend Margaret in the reflection.
Yes.
Her taking a bath and suddenly drowning in an infinite nighttime poolscape. All of these images feel like they're being used to show, and this makes sense on behalf of the filmmakers, all of these things are being used to show that Alice is trapped and she doesn't realize it.
Yeah.
And that is valuable in terms of, like, what's the word? In terms of conditioning the audience to be ready for the big reveal and the way in which Alice is trapped in this world. But in my opinion, and perhaps you agree, is that it feels so heavy-handed that it kind of almost desensitizes the audience to the climax. It's like, wow, okay. Well, that makes sense, but you kind of hit me on the head too hard about it, and I kind of don't care anymore.
Yeah. Yes. So you're sort of echoing, the latter part of your sentiments is sort of echoing my...
Yeah.
There's always strange sounds on our street. I have no idea.
Great. Welcome to Strange
Yeah.
Place. So the walls close in. She's cleaning. She's being a dutiful housewife.
Yeah.
They're constricting her, and suddenly they stop. And she takes a breath, and she looks out the window.
Yes. What are you... Go on.
We're moving forward in the plot.
Yes. Well, we want to get to the thing that happens to Margaret.
Outside, she sees that Margaret is standing on the roof.
On the roof of her house.
Why is she standing on the roof? We're going to find out.
We don't really know, and It's never really revealed. But...
So Alice goes outside and calls out to Margaret, trying to console her, make sure she's okay. She clearly has a look on her face of some kind of... You could almost imagine it's kind of like an existential horror.
Yes.
Like almost like something Cthulhian has possessed her.
Yes.
And
good adjective.
Where is Margaret? Because that's not Margaret. Something is wrong with her.
Yes.
And so Margaret looks at Alice.
Yep.
And
slits her throat.
And
then she falls off the roof.
She's bleeding everywhere.
She's bleeding everywhere. And Alice tries to run forward to come to Margaret's aid.
And she is intercepted.
She's intercepted by, like, these guys in red jumpsuits, basically.
Yes. So it's established that the red jumpsuit men are the ones that have to take Margaret away.
Yes.
And in order to take care of Margaret, they also need to hold Alice back from interfering.
Yeah.
But yeah, they basically take Margaret off the lawn. They supposedly drive her to a hospital or whatever. And meanwhile, they put Alice back in the home and tell her that she can't. Basically, the scene jumps to Dr. Collins in the house with Jack.
Yes. And Dr. Collins is... taking Alice's blood pressure.
Yep.
He's basically doing like a checkup on Alice.
And rightfully
Checkup.
so. You know, poor Alice is
Quote unquote.
really disturbed by what she saw.
Yes.
And she's insisting to both her husband and the community doctor that I saw something that was terrifying in regards to a friend of mine.
Yes.
I saw her commit suicide, and they literally tell her that's not what happened.
You know what I thought was unfortunate? The friendship, the Margaret Alice friendship component didn't feel fleshed out at all to me.
The Margaret Alice friendship is one of the weakest part of the film.
Yes, and it's supposed to have emotional impact, and I think it doesn't because we're not emotionally invested in that whatever that relationship was prior.
Yes, absolutely. It's it's kind of messed up that sometimes this film feels like it's just enough exposition to simply say something as fact. Your friend Margaret, my friend Margaret.
Yes,
I miss being friends
it's
with
lazy.
Margaret.
It's lazy writing, to be honest. It's the writing feels really easy at certain
I'm willing
points.
to say that they painted it as smart and efficient, and I think they were far too thorough with some things.
Yeah.
Whereas this situation, it's like, again, buy-in.
Yeah.
Get me invested in the sexy, beautiful, exclusive world in the desert.
Yeah.
Get me invested with all the parties we have with our friends. You know what? I don't even know why they didn't do this. Why wasn't Margaret at the opening scene party? They should have had her at that.
Oh, for sure she should have been in that scene.
Margaret was not. She was the only friend in the friend group who wasn't at that party because they're establishing something disturbing has already happened. I would venture to say a better inciting incident for the film, if there even is really one, is that they're all having a good time, party, or you know what? This would have been great. Let's move to town. Let's throw a party as a home. What do they call that? A homecoming party? A home
housewarming party.
As a housewarming party to the neighbors. Everybody comes over. By the way, we find out that Jack's been working for this community for a little while.
Yeah.
I met Margaret in the past. Me and Margaret are like bonding over our husband's co-partnership workship.
Yeah.
And so they're really close. So they're connecting, getting drunk, and having fun. And then the next day, she calls and like Margaret doesn't pick up. And then we see sirens in front of the house or some shit like that. And we find out that Margaret went out into the desert with her son. Which also would have been helpful that we saw the son at least once alive.
Yeah.
Again, we find out that Margaret's son is dead. And Margaret's been kind of weird ever since.
Yeah.
Like, why do we care? You know?
Yeah, man.
And, like, even me saying that out loud, I hope this isn't, like, misinterpreted as, like, you know, two dudes that are completely apathetic towards, you know, a mother's plight, because that's not the situation. Like, the reality is, as like an audience viewing what's happening, we don't see Margaret for a collective more than 25 seconds on screen.
Yeah.
Until she's on the roof.
Yeah.
Right? Am I crazy here?
No, I mean, Margaret's
seconds?
she's not woven intricately enough into the main storylines for the things that happen to her to have the emotional impact that they need to have.
As a device.
She does.
To set
that's, by the way, I think that's the most concise way to put it. Margaret exists as a story device, and it's not the most effective approach to that character, I don't think.
Yeah. Everybody in some ways is a pawn on the board of on the chessboard of Alice trying to cross the battlefield.
Yeah.
And there is no king. She is the queen. And everybody else basically is just kind of thrown in her way.
Yeah.
And she kind of very easily moves past them. Like that's the other thing is there's tons of moments in this film where it's suggested that nobody's listening to her. But unfortunately, it's also viewed as like, I don't know, maybe I'm misinterpreting this. I want to hear your thoughts on this. It almost feels like it's too easy for nobody to listen to her. Like, why can't there be one person that listens to her? Why can't it even be
And I think
husband?
that person is kind of supposed to be Bunny.
Yeah, but Bunny ignores her the whole film until the final moment.
I agree with you. The way I would put it as like a storytelling tenet is like an ally that becomes an enemy.
Yes.
So you have someone who you think is your ally. This is what Alice needed. Someone who... I think this is supposed to be Jack.
Yes.
Someone you think is your ally and they become your enemy. I think that person is Jack in this story. So I think that person does exist, but they don't exist on the female side of this, is what I would say.
Other than, as you mentioned, Bunny later in the film.
But you're right. Bunny is going to do what she's going to do because she also wants... Well, it gets revealed later why Bunny's there. But anyway.
So, to bring it back to the current plot point, Jack, in his defense, does stick his neck out for his wife. Basically,
in the Dr. Collins scene.
Dr. Collins says, I'm going to write you a prescription. I think this will help you with a potential psychosis. And she says, no, I don't want to take medicine. And Jack says, she doesn't need medicine. We'll make it work. And there's this weird moment where Jack and Dr. Collins have a extended eye gaze. They lock eyes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of suggested that, like, Jack is kind of stepping beyond his limitations as a coworker for the community. Like, he's not if the doctor prescribes medicine, you take the medicine.
Yeah, but I think Jack, what we also know about Jack is that he's rising through the ranks, quote unquote, of this whatever this organization is, this Victory Corporation. Right, which is about to come up at the promotion event.
Yes, I do think that Jack is. It is suggested that he's on thin ice.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
which is also related to. I think that's related to what we're about to get to, which is the promotion event.
Yeah.
So there's basically a big kind of.
Before the promotion, we have another sequence of. What would you say of? You could call it mental imagery. What are we going to call those?
I would call them just visual.
What do you call it when you're being hypnotized or you're being put into a trance? Like,
they're kind of like trance sequences. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So we'll call it a trance sequence because the images have that effect.
Trance-like imagery. Yeah.
They have that effect on the viewer. And so basically, if I'm correct, if me and Dale aren't missing any plot points. Within the next few moments, Collins leaves. Jack goes to work. Ooh, we missed this part.
Well, Alice finds the file.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yep. So, Collins grabs his medical equipment and steps out with Jack to have a private conversation. Leaves his briefcase.
Very convenient, by the way.
She opens the briefcase and finds a file
on Margaret.
On Margaret, who just killed herself, and everything is blacked out.
Redacted, yeah.
Redacted, thank you. Good word. And so she took a risk, stole the file, doesn't pay off for anything. And at some point in the next couple moments, if I'm correct, I feel like we're missing something.
No, then they just come back inside, and there's sort of a visual, in the editing, there's sort of a visual tease of, is he going to find her looking through the briefcase? That feels very high stakes. And he doesn't. Yes, he comes back inside, and she's like, "You forgot your briefcase, ha ha ha." And she, but,
which we've seen a million
she's so
times.
devastated to see. Oh no, she took the file. We don't see her open the file. The redacting thing comes after she hands Collins back his briefcase.
Correct.
And then she's like looking in. Oh, Jack has to go back to work.
Yes.
So Dr. Collins is like, Jack, shouldn't you be going back to work? Very like. Get the fuck back to work, motherfucker. But in a very, like, subdued way. And so Alice is left alone with the file, and then she looks through the file, and she's devastated to learn that it's all redacted, and she throws it in the fire.
Yes, okay.
And then I believe we cut from there to her in the bathtub. She just wakes up in the bathtub.
Well, first she's drowning in the water.
Yes. This is those trance, like,
That's what I was getting at. So we somehow go from the fire to the water. And she's kind of drowning. She's drowning. And then she opens her eyes, and she's in a bathtub.
Yes.
And Jack's getting ready for a big party.
Yeah.
And she's super confused. How did I end up here?
And I think we're meant to be steeped in Alice's confusion as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, Alice gets out of the bath, gets dressed, and they go to this huge banger of a party thrown by Frank again. Yeah. Loud bands.
Everyone in town is there.
Everyone in town is there. Tons of money's being spent on food and caviar and wine. Massive big bands with band leaders and tons of solos and instrumentalists, and basically, there's burlesque and strippers, and it's just like a wild time for everybody to celebrate victory. It kind of gives like an annual event kind of vibe.
And then the so the promotion night event, I think it's interesting because Alice is not able to enjoy it at all for obvious reasons, right? And so Bunny is like elated that Alice is there. Alice is completely out of it. Alice wants to leave. She tells Jack she wants to leave. And there's like some burlesque dancing going on. A woman basically ends up she's a dancer. She basically, like, the whole point of the dance is that she eventually ends up in a champagne glass.
Something like that.
And, Frank is like, isn't that fucking dope? I'm the cool. Basically, Frank's ego is on, 1,000.
Yeah.
And he's, tying it, he basically is like, this is what victory is all about. We're supposed to have fun. It's supposed to be awesome. And
work hard, party harder.
Work hard, party, yeah. Which, by the way, felt like a very cheap line to me. But anyway.
Yeah, and also, the guy just felt so like... There's so many times in this film when Frank makes like weird, long eye contact with people. And it's like,
yes,
this guy's clearly a bad guy. And nothing develops on that. Like, he's just a bad guy. He's a bad guy, he's a bad guy.
He's a two-dimensional bad guy in this movie, for sure.
Yeah. And so at some point during the night, lights come down... Frank and Alice make some weird long eye contact again.
Yeah.
And then Frank goes on stage and literally says, there's a young man here who has been working so hard and he deserves recognition.
Yeah.
And I want Jack to come on stage.
Right. So he calls Jack up. And Alice has already told Jack, I want to leave.
Yes. She's feeling uncomfortable. She feels like she doesn't belong there.
Yes.
Something is off.
Yes.
And so, yeah, basically... Frank takes out a little box.
Yeah.
Opens it.
Yeah.
And essentially puts like a partner ring.
Yeah. There's
Jack's
these rings
hand.
that he gives out to everyone.
Yeah, there's something very matrimonial about it. And
I'm pretty sure, by the way, it's a nod to Stepford Wives or Rosemary's Baby.
Okay.
It's coming from, I can't remember which one. There's a ring element in both of those.
Yeah.
And not both of those. I think one of those movies, and it's totally drawing from that. But anyway.
Okay, so I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
And in terms of like a matrimonial thing, it's tough because, it really does bring up a good question in terms of like a man and his duty and his spouse,
Mm-hmm.
Is he choosing between his wife or is he choosing his job? And on stage in front of everybody, he accepts the ring.
Even though he knows Alice is in distress.
Yes. And then Alice runs out in tears. Nobody notices, by the way. It's in darkness, and she's not drawing attention to herself.
Yes.
The only person who may notice,
which kind of sucks the stakes out of it a little bit. It's not a great... I feel like it would have been a little more high... That scene is supposed to be this, like, escalation of stakes, and I have to say it doesn't achieve that. I think it would have been a little higher stakes if kind of a bunch of people did notice that Alice ran out. And it's becoming an issue, and anyway.
I also think part of the stakes is I still never quite understood why she wanted to leave.
Why she wanted to leave that event.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was a moment when she sensed...
It felt a little contrived, is maybe a good way to put it.
I think she was afraid, and this is how I felt for a moment. Maybe this is what the filmmakers were trying to do. We were afraid, Alice was afraid, that something terrible was going to happen to Jack when he went on stage. Like something,
maybe.
Something sick
yeah.
and sacrificial was gonna they were just gonna straight up.
That did not occur to me, but that's interesting. Okay.
There was something that deep inside of me, and maybe that just speaks to who I am as a person. There was something that was very eerie about the way they called him on stage.
For sure, and that's true.
The fear that she had that nobody else in the room had at all. But the issue
I just feel like she knew, when he goes up there, he's about to... I thought she knew, like, he's about to go up in a rank, and that's going to fuck us over.
And
that's going to mean it's going to be harder for me to leave.
Well, that's
town.
the thing. And so for me, on that note, it really... Whether or not there was some weird sacrifice shit happening, or she...
Would have been sick if Jack's head had gotten chopped off. That would have been dope.
That would have definitely upped the stakes.
I'm in for that. He pulls out a hatchet, just...
What would have happened is Frank, as a crazy man, probably would have pulled out like a...
Katana sword?
Nah, he would have pulled out like a revolver. And would have had fun just like shooting targets, and then... You
think Frank is that nuts?
I don't think he is.
Yeah.
But it would have been an interesting color for that character.
You know what? Frank also could have been fucking scarier. I don't think he was that scary on the surface. You get the sense that he's scary because he's powerful and he has influence in this small community. But I beyond that, I'm like, why else is he scary? That's maybe my personal... I felt like... Maybe that's just an overall plot script stakes thing. Is like, you need, like, if you're going to have this, villain, it needs to be defined why they're so scary. Why they are the ultimate threat.
I will say,
I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I'm a little bit at odds with that statement, because on the one hand, I'm in support.
You fucking kidding me, man?
I am in support that if you're going to paint just to pull from pop culture, a Thanos figure, you better establish how powerful he is from the start. The difference with this film is I don't want to know that he's powerful because I don't want to know he's the bad guy. Does that make sense?
Right. It's a
tricky tightrope to walk.
It is. It is.
And so in the case of him, it would be cool if rather than creepy eye contact during sex, if they set up weird moments of like, oh, that's weird. He's like too good at darts. Oh, that's weird. He's taking the boys out for drives in the desert and they're driving 120 miles an hour. Okay. Oh, that's weird.
You're throwing out some interesting ideas here.
That's weird. This guy can outdrink everybody and not feel a thing.
Yo, that's... Gabe,
do you
that's
see what I'm getting at?
Yes. Adding there could have been dimension added to his persona.
Yes, almost like a supernatural vibe behind him.
Yeah, oh man.
Without any weird, creepy shit. You want to trust this guy because he's larger than life.
I think there could have been more investment in what he means to these men.
Yeah.
Maybe like he holds like this wouldn't be rooted in a 1950s reality because men didn't care that much about physical fitness evidently in the 1950s overall, like the way men care about it now. So, but maybe like he has these workouts and he's putting the guys through these brutal workouts and they're like, all they want to do is be as jacked and as fit as
Well,
Frank.
it'd be cool if
and
it
like
was...
you're saying, he drinks them under the table. He
yes.
You know what I mean? All these things
Smokes
that represent
them out with
masculinity,
cigars, stuff like
he's
that.
just fucking kicks their ass.
Yeah.
And that's part of... But I think Olivia Wilde and Katie Silberman are taking for granted that we will just understand why the men look up to Frank. And it's not fully defined.
No, the guy is just... It's
just that he's handsome and kind of cool looking.
I
don't know.
And smart. He supposedly is very good with words, and he's built an empire that sustains life in a desert.
Cool.
Like, that supposedly is supposed to be enough. Which, on an intellectual level, yes. But again, that's what's missing in this film is the relationship. In the same way that we doubt the relationship between Margaret and Alice, we are not fully invested in the relationship between Alice and Jack. We, too, are not completely bought into every individual man's relationship with Frank.
Yeah.
And so in this moment during the party, she's experiencing real fear that she's never going to be able to escape.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't... She's clearly terrified. And you're just like, why are you so terrified? Like, I intellectually know why you're terrified.
Yes.
But it doesn't even really get scary until she leaves the room. That's where I'm like, oh, this is such a weird, freaky thing. So
and then it's intercut. Her leaving the room is intercut with...
With basically, Jack accepts the ring. The big band strikes up a number, having a good time.
Yeah.
And then while the song is getting loud and funky and fun...
Yeah.
Frank tells Jack to dance.
Yeah, and so Jack dances. He does indeed. And we'll be right back with the Movie Addicts podcast.
And dance he does.
Do you mind if I grab a cup of coffee real quick? Or do you feel like we're...
No, let's do it, Let me hit the record button, actually.
Cool. But why am I not... Oh, there we go. And we're back.
All right, last time we were talking, Jack was dancing. Yes. Hello.
Wait, I gotta put my sunglasses back on, man.
Get those sunnies on, baby.
It's too bright out here.
Hello. Oh, weird.
Yeah, what's up?
Oh, weird.
What's up?
When I talk on this side, it comes in on my right side. When I talk on this side, it's coming on the left side.
Wow.
Is that a problem? Is that why we should be talking like this from the top, so it's recorded both sides of stereo? But my voice is just
No.
quiet?
Don't worry. I don't think you have to worry about that. Our voices have been sounding crispy this whole time. I'm telling you. I think they've been sounding crispy.
You know what it might also be? I think I know what it is. Basically...
It has to be facing this side. Your voice has to be facing this side.
I think what's going on is that our headphones are also only getting half of the audio quality.
Yeah.
Because it's being split right now.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that it's only recording half the audio quality, which is not true. It's just being split into the headphones.
I'm telling you, we're sounding very good this episode so far. So.
Crispy baby.
Let's get back to Jack.
Yeah. Hey, Jack.
Dancing.
So Jack starts dancing, and meanwhile, okay, so let's
just sort of this absurd, weird scene. It's very strange.
It's it's almost like, all right, well, Harry Styles is a good performer, so let's let him perform.
And I liked it. I liked the choice.
I bought it.
I bought it too.
Because here's a man who, there are subtle hints to his ability to contribute to Alice's day-to-day life, or not be able to contribute. And so it was interesting to see him be able to dance with such capability. It's like, oh, is this guy really competent at something that we didn't know about? Like, how fascinating that this is a multi-dimensional person who, and this will be.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, this will be relevant later on as to find out like what we'll learn about Jack's like alter ego.
Okay, so
Jack is dancing on stage.
Yeah.
Party's getting loud. He got a promotion. Everybody loves him. Everybody's screaming. We are victory or something like that.
Yeah. It's a big rah-rah.
Yes.
Event.
And meanwhile, Alice is having a nervous breakdown in the bathroom, and Bunny runs in to check on her. And Alice is spilling her guts, telling her everything she's learned about Margaret. And Bunny's like, basically says, you're wrong, and you're ruining your husband's night. Stop.
Yeah. Yes. And so, that's the whole thing of Bunny seeming like an ally, and she's really not. And then we'll learn kind of later why she feels like she can't be a real ally. And then the promotion event scene is followed up by none other than the neighborhood dinner party kind of thing. And this is where it all comes to a head.
A big fat head.
This is where it all... Oh, shit. This is where it all really starts to break down, I would say.
Like a pimple?
I would say, like... I would consider the promotion event the climax of the script.
The climax? Plot-wise?
Plot-wise, yeah. It totally is.
You don't think the climax is when she's trying to run away from everybody?
No, that's the falling action, man.
Well, then there's a shit ton of falling action in this story.
Yeah, there is.
I don't know. I don't buy it. I feel
the
like
promotion event is the climax.
I feel like the promotion is the end of the next act. If this was a 3-act film,
the climax.
No, because the third act has a climax in it as well. The second act doesn't contain the entire story's climax at the height of it.
Are you fucking kidding me, man?
It leads up to the third act.
All right, we disagree on where the climax is.
Cool.
I'm considering it all one arc. Climax.
Let's get to the root of what you're trying to say. Why do you feel that the party is the key plot point of the film?
Because It's when Alice chooses to fully resist what's going on in spite of the potential consequences. And so they have this dinner party. No one actually knows that Frank's showing up. So it's they have Peg and her husband. Who else? They have Bunny and Dean. They have Alice and Jack, and then they have Frank shows up with Shelley, his wife Shelley. So it's 8 people at the dinner table, right? It's 8 people, right?
Yes, Peter's there with
which
Peg.
Is a yeah. So there's 3 people on each side of the table, and then it turns out that the seating arrangements are such that. Well, let me not get there yet. Alice is like preparing something in the kitchen.
Yes.
And Frank kind of like sidles up to her in a really creepy way.
Yeah, while everyone's chatting and meandering and catching up, of course, the dutiful Alice, as wife to the recently promoted Jack, is preparing dinner for everybody. And while she's cooking, Frank kind of slides into the kitchen and basically has like this weird, oh wow, you're doing a great job. You're cooking for everybody, and by the way, I know what you saw. Help me out here. This moment felt kind of weird when it was happening, and honestly, I can't remember the moment.
Here's the problem: is we know as the audience has seen enough movies. We know what this moment is. It's the villain being intimidating and doubling down on his villainy, right? And I think the execution of the scene is not fully there because it's unclear what basically the punchline of the scene is. I know you're gonna try to a great man needs to be pushed to his limits. He needs someone to push him to his limits.
And I've been waiting for you.
I've been waiting for someone like you to push me to my limits. Keep going. But he also kind of gives her a little jab. He's like, he's like, you're pushing me to my limits, yet he says something like, you're still here, preparing dinner like a good girl.
Right.
And he knows that's the last button he needed to push. And Alice is fucking pissed. And then they, all sit down to dinner. Oh, nicey nice. And who's sitting at that far end of the table? The head of the table? Frank. Who's sitting at the other head of the table? Alice. So we know it's going down. It's a showdown.
Which, by the way, Alice took the seat from Jack. Jack should have been sitting opposite. Yes, that's a little detail, absolutely. From Frank. Yes. And I'm not saying he should have, because...
No, like the movie, you're saying that's in the scene.
That's literally happens in the film. Like, he's about to sit down, and then...
And Alice is like, nope.
Yeah, just slides right in.
Which is just... that's Olivia Wilde directing that, right? Blocking that
It's also kind of a weird, uncomfortable moment for everybody at the table.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good way to ease into what the scene is about to be. And what the scene is like, basically... It devolves into Alice poking holes in everyone's marriages at the table.
Because weirdly enough, everybody has the same story about how they met.
Yes.
The
details are slightly different, but it's all the same story.
Everybody has the same location that they honeymooned at.
Yes.
And she's just questioning, like, why is that? Don't we all think that's kind of weird?
Yes. And Frank is kind of lapping it up. Because Frank knows that Alice is digging her own grave. And he knows that he pushed that button, so then now she's going to go say a bunch of stuff because she's fucking furious. And she wants to poke a hole in this reality, this false reality. And Frank's kind of lapping it up. And... it all builds up to Frank making her look completely crazy. Yeah. And how does he do that? I was trying to.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember exactly.
The only thing I could really say is that basically the conversation shifts from Alice going, well, isn't this kind of a weird thing? And isn't Exhibit B kind of a weird thing? And isn't Exhibit C kind of a weird thing? And then she basically comes out and says, Frank is controlling all of this. And it was kind of a weird, like, aha moment where I'm like, this doesn't feel real right now. But I guess she's going to go for it. And so she does. And as Dale mentioned, Frank is kind of sitting back and, you know, smiling out of the side of his face because he kind of wants her to pull this thread. Because all Frank has to say to everybody in the room who loves and adores him, you know, Alice hasn't been doing too well lately.
Yes, right, exactly.
And
he makes her look mentally unstable.
She actually hasn't been taking her medicine. And by the way, at the party, I saw that she was having sex in my bedroom at my house.
That's exactly what happens, yep.
And so she looks like a fool. Shelley, the wife of Frank, stands up and says, you invite us into your home as guests, and you disrespect us, I will be waiting in the car.
Right.
Which is one of the most... How many times have I heard that in real life? That is a very uncomfortable thing to hear, because it creates a sense of urgency of like, well, we could stay in here. Well, but the point is we could continue to party.
Right.
But we're going to party while she sits in the car? No.
Shelley puts her foot down.
So Shelley goes out. Everybody kind of gets up uncomfortably and shuttles out. And Frank finds his way out. And that leaves Jack furious and disappointed because he just got the best promotion of his life. And then the following night, his wife tanks it all by attempting to embarrass and subvert the figurehead of the entire community in the comfort of their home.
Yeah, and so Jack, you know, says to Alice, like, you just wanted to... Something along the lines of, you wanted to embarrass me. You wanted to embarrass me. You wanted to sabotage what I have going on.
And Alice says, no, I love you. I don't you understand? I just want to be with you. Can't it just be us without the job?
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to be in victory. We don't have to be... Can we please leave? Can we please leave? And Jack looks at her and says, okay. So they get packed. They get in the car. She comes in. He's sitting behind the wheel. And it's this weird moment where it's like, why hasn't the car started yet? And she looks at him, and I think she asks him to start the car. And he basically, like, doesn't look her in the eyes and says something to the effect of, I'm sorry. And then the red jumpsuits show up.
And then the guys in the red jumpsuits show up. And so we already understand what that means. They pull her out of the car. And Jack just sort of sits by like a coward as they pull her out of the car.
Like a big dookie coward, because clearly he sold her out.
Totally.
And all he can do is scream in the car, fuck, as if like that's going to do anything. And as if like... It's like, dude, you just sold your wife out. Yeah, like, totally. You chose the company over your wife.
Yep.
And you don't know what they're going to do to her. By the way, you, working for the company, probably knows what happened to Margaret.
And what do they do to her?
Well, in the film, it looks like they drag her off to a hospital.
Yes.
They
force her to undergo
electrotherapy.
Yep.
Electroshock therapy, yes. Yep. And basically, they shock the shit out of her. They put the pulses, or whatever you call them, the pads, on her temples.
Yeah.
And as she's getting shocked, the doctors finish up, they leave the room, and it cuts to a hallway in a hospital. And guess who it is?
Who is it?
It's Alice. But
it's not Alice, is it? It's not the Alice we know, is it?
No, it's a different Alice.
And what's she doing?
She's wearing hospital garb.
Okay.
She has a tag on.
Okay.
She's clearly wearing clothes from present day.
Okay.
And she's using her cell phone.
Okay.
To contact whoever is most important at the moment. She's just suddenly Alice, good girl, good wife from the 1950s, is now operating room surgeon Alice.
Yeah.
Communicating on her phone in 2022.
Yes. So
what
she
the hell
finishes
is
the
going
surgery, walks out of the OR. That's a term, right? The
operating room.
Okay. shout out to me just throwing out OR like a fucking pro.
Pro,
Okay.
baby, pro.
That was incredible. Everyone's cheering, everyone's clapping. Yeah, I'm like Jack dancing on the stage right now. No, but so she's okay. We go, and then I'm sitting. You and I are sitting in the. I'm going, what? I'm having whiplash.
Yeah, so confused.
I was terribly, terribly confused. We'll get there. Alice goes home. This Alice, the new Alice, same person but completely different era.
Somebody who lives in like not a perfect suburban home, clearly in a metropolitan area, in a shitty ass apartment.
Yes. So she. Now I'm realizing. Now I'm putting together things the film was trying to say. She is the breadwinner, and then she goes home, and Jack is around, but he's at the apartment, unemployed, seemingly just sitting at his computer.
Also, Jack looks terrible.
He looks fucking awful.
His hair is so grown out. He's got the icky, gross.
He looks terrible. He looks terrible.
Shaved beard that he can't grow.
They made Harry Styles look as shitty as possible. He was
still pretty handsome. Still pretty
good. Which is that's. I think they could have gone even harder in my opinion with how fucking awful he looks. He could have looked way worse. Anyway, maybe it's hard to make Harry Styles look bad.
Yeah, it's possible.
Handsome guy.
But anyway, he's sitting at a computer desk with headphones plugged in, listening to something, and he looks up and he's like, "So what are we gonna eat?" And she's like, "I just came off a 30-hour shift and I got to be back in 6 hours."
Yeah, she's gassed. She's tired, really, really tired.
So they're not going to eat, and he's been home all day, supposedly.
Oh, right, because he was waiting for her to cook him something.
Yes.
Or no, I'm sorry. That's not really what he says. He says, "I don't know how to cook," or something about...
At the very least, it was suggested that she was going to help him have a meal that moment. Whether they were going to call a phone and get some takeout.
I think what he says to her, he blames it on her. He says, like, "You didn't tell me what you wanted," sort of thing.
Right, exactly.
I think that's what he says. Anyway.
And I think it's supposed... Like, if we want to be empathetic towards that character, I think he was just looking to share a meal with her. Not necessarily being, like, icky and gross and, like, make me a fucking steak right now.
Yeah.
Woman.
And...
So that's strike one for him.
Yes.
Strike two, it's kind of clear that she just wants to go to sleep. So clearly,
he wants to have sex with her too. That's the whole
clearly
other thing.
they're not having any sex right now.
Right.
She's just working her brains out. She's working her ass off to afford him a life in the apartment.
Which, by the way, so now I'm realizing what the implications of the shitty apartment they live in are. She's a surgeon. I think the suggestion is that she's underpaid for what she does. I think that's a sort of a.
She might also be in residency. Like they could be. Yeah,
it's unclear because it's Florence Pugh playing her age. So yeah, like she's probably fresh out of med school. I was maybe reading too deep into maybe Olivia Wilde's trying to say she's underpaid, but the point is that he's not. They're having to survive. The two of them are having to survive on her income. Clearly.
And what the hell is he doing?
He's doing nothing. Well, actually, he's not doing nothing. What is he doing? He's listening.
He's on the computer all day long.
He's on the computer and he's listening to Frank. Basically, Frank has a. There's that audio. He's listening to a Frank.
He's listening to either Frank TED Talks or Frank
it's
podcast.
It's like some podcast
or some kind of
audio.
Some kind of audio stream of Frank's voice giving inspirational, uplifting philosophy
to men.
To men.
Men everywhere, kind of thing. American.
Not even men, but at the very least to Jack. I think the suggestion is it is for men because all the men in the world of victory are the ones who believe in him. So you, as an audience member, you can assume that it's for all men. But the point is Jack, after not getting food, after not being able to have sex with his spouse, girlfriend, etc., she closes the door, she goes to sleep, and he plugs his headphones
He also,
in.
doesn't ask her, how her day went or anything, right? Am I tripping?
Yeah, he's totally,
in his own...
Yeah, he's got, expectation without... there's a lot of unrequited stuff going on right now.
Yes.
It feels like a very transactional relationship.
Yes, totally, right. Okay, absolutely. So, moving on from that... So, then we're getting the sense, as the audience, we're trying to catch up a little bit here. Right? And we're going, wait, what's going on? Is this Alice? Is this who Alice really is in real life? And then...
you know what happens if I'm correct?
Go for it.
She closes the door. He listens to Frank again.
Yes.
And as Frank continues to speak, the idea of victory is proposed, and then it cuts to a very short montage
Yes.
of what has become of Alice and him.
And do you want to explain that?
Basically, what happens is Frank offers a world that is virtual.
For men specifically, it seems. For whatever. Just go for it. Go for it.
Frank offers a world, we'll say for men, where people can escape their present reality in exchange.
Oh, but now I'm realizing maybe it's not exclusively for men because of
Bunny. Yes. So Frank offers a world in a simulation that, as long as there's a caregiver, somebody can live full time in a perfect world, under the guise that that is their true reality.
Yes, like a virtual reality that they will believe to be their true reality.
Exactly. And so all day long, Alice Warren, the hardworking surgeon, has been actually tied to her bed.
Very disturbing. Yeah.
Buckled.
Yeah.
As a prisoner in her own home, with images projected above the screen that are intended to put her in a trance.
Yeah.
Which include the iris.
Yes.
Include the dancing girl.
She has like eyewear.
In order to have her basically immersed in the world.
The world of victory.
The world of victory. There are, we'll say, eyeglass frames.
Yeah.
That are
kind of a nod to like Clockwork Orange.
Interesting.
By the way, but yeah.
That are, whether they're surgically or they're simply applied to the front of one's face.
Yeah.
They have an advanced form of projection technology, which essentially like transcodes and projects whatever image the user is experiencing in the virtual world directly into the retina of the user. So she must probably be like physically sedated all the time, with her eyes forced to be open, and her brain can feel and experience everything, and her eyes are stimulated by a digital projection. But the reality is she's just in bed all the time.
Yeah.
And when the men all get up in the morning and get in their cars and kiss their wives goodbye and get into the cul-de-sac, they drive to the headquarters in the middle of the desert, they go up the hill, and just as Alice went up the hill trying to help the plane wreckage, and she goes up to the headquarters and she presses the front and passes out, they too technically pass out, but they're not passing out, they're passing through. In the film, in the original moment, Alice passes out and sees the trance sequences, because what was actually happening is she was about to wake up and her eyes were seeing the projections on the ceiling. In the case of Jack, all the men go up to the headquarters, they leave the virtual world, and then they work for X amount of hours a day to sustain the home and the 24/7, you'll say, utopic prison that the women and children live in.
Yes.
Which we don't know whether the children are real or not.
Jack says that they're not. So let's get back to.
We don't know.
We don't know. Well.
Do you see what I'm saying? Jack could be lying just to keep her there.
But Bunny says the thing about her children.
But again, that's only her children.
And how are they in there?
They're, I don't know, digital avatar or something like that.
So then Alice returns to victory. She returns to the 1950s simulated reality, right? But we are, as the audience, returning with her with this new information about what the hell is going on.
Whereas she has supposedly forgotten it. She's gone through electrotherapy, which stimulated her memories of her real life as an OR surgeon.
Yes.
But now she's back in victory, and she's trying to re-assimilate.
Yeah.
After the promotion, after the falling out of the party, in addition to the recent death of Margaret and the gaslighting of both her husband and her neighbor Bunny, she's trying to reassimilate.
Yeah, and she's triggered back into... I sort of forget what the exact trigger is, but she's triggered back into... Basically now, though, she's living in that split... Now we sort of have a sense of what was happening with Margaret. Where now we understand better through Alice's eyes what was happening to Margaret, because now that she has those memories of her real life, of her true reality, have been triggered, she's now stuck in this almost like half-in, half-out phase.
Yes, which everybody in the world says she's experiencing psychosis.
Yes.
Which... in the defense of the filmmakers, in spite of, the occasional flaw that me and Dale are identifying, or flaw may be even unfair, but what we think is a weaker choice for storytelling, it's always very exciting to watch somebody fluctuate between two worlds as an audience member, trying to figure out through the mystery which world is the real one.
Totally. I think it's a compelling conflict. And so Alice returns to Victory... and is fully kind of half in, half out on this Victory reality, and we are, as the audience are as well. The Victory reality and the Alice's the true reality that she's basically strapped to a bed and being forced into this simulated reality.
Yeah, if I'm correct, we're getting thrust basically into the final moments of the film, where everybody is about to step out to work, right?
Yeah,
and then she goes inside. Does Jack go back in?
Jack is there when she has this kind of meltdown. Final.
Oh,
meltdown.
You know what? She's cooking something, and then it falls on the floor. So he must have came home from work.
Yes.
So it's mid-afternoon, I guess is the suggestion.
Sure.
Did anything happen before her waking up? She was talking with Bunny on the front lawn as the kids come home from school.
Yes.
Wasn't that a thing?
Yes. And she's struggling to remember
Peggy's name?
She's struggling to remember someone's name.
And Bunny's like, it'll come back to you.
But what's really happening is that she's kind of actually waking up to the fact that she has a real identity in reality. And her journey basically through this half in, half out stasis. I don't know if that's the right word, but basically that this half in, half out thing that's happening psychologically escalates to a point where she demands Jack comes home, and she's cooking for him or something. And she eventually has kind of a meltdown and demands that Jack tell her the truth. And Jack is trying to keep her in the Victory reality, and they get into a blowout argument.
They do.
And the argument escalates to a point where... Is there anything in the argument that you think we should touch on that Jack says? Or that she says?
I mean, the main thing that I would get to is Jack finally admits that there is another life.
Yes.
That where we are living is not real.
Yes.
And
she's asking him questions about what is real, what's not.
Right.
And she's like...
yes. Ultimately, Jack admits everything that's happened. He's, kind of whimpering and crying and... apologizing to her, but he also gets angry because he says that he's been working 8 hours a day at a job he hates to give her the perfect life 24/7.
And so the suggestion there is what? You've touched upon this really eloquently multiple times. The suggestion of him going to work. Like, what is the suggestion is that in reality...
Okay.
He is leaving her bedside where she's like strapped every day to go work. Job
for whatever job,
so that he can, because now she can't be a surgeon and pay the rent.
Correct.
So he has to go pay the rent.
Yes, and whatever shitty, crappy, random job that poor, insecure Jack, who who just felt, so
Boo-hoo.
unnoticed in real life,
Right.
who was lacking requited mutual feelings for sex and emotional support and, practical, if you want to talk love languages, they have, one of them is quality time. They clearly didn't have any quality time together.
Mm-hmm.
He took it upon himself to extract all autonomy out of her life in order to give her the perfect life.
Yes.
But the problem is...
This is the way he sees it, yes.
That's the way he sees it, but the reality is you can program that life to be whatever you want. He literally asked Frank to give him a British accent.
Right. So we can touch on... I think we should touch on that once we get through all the plot points, because I think we have a lot of things to say after we sort of get through the
Okay. So he's basically like, I'm slaving... Did I miss anything that you were trying to get through?
You're killing it.
So he's like, I'm slaving away 8 days or
8 hours a day.
Thank you. 8 hours a day to give you the perfect life. I'm working so hard to give this to you. How could you not want to be here all the time? It's perfect. And
he says, like, all I want to do is be here. I don't want to have to go leave you to go to work and all this stuff.
Exactly. And she just pushes back. And they kind of get really sad for a moment, and they go to embrace. And as they're holding each other, he starts to choke her.
So it starts squeezing tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And she realizes, she tries to get him off of her, and she realizes he's not going to let go.
Yeah, so she reaches for like a nearby whiskey rocks glass and strikes him in the head. And, for all of you who haven't had the pleasure of drinking out of an old-fashioned whiskey rocks glass, that is some thick glass, my friends.
Oh, yeah.
It will not shatter. Instead, it basically... cracked his skull.
Totally.
And he bled out and died.
And then Bunny charges in.
Yes. For whatever reason, I guess the neighbors heard her yelling.
They heard, like, commotion, right?
Yes.
By the way, which is set up earlier because Bunny says, oh, you wouldn't believe the things I hear coming from their house.
Great call.
Referring to them having sex. So people can hear. The walls are thin or whatever the fuck it is.
Good call. So that was a smart setup on Olivia Wilde's
and Katie Silberman's.
Thank you, Katie Silberman's. Silberman.
Give the writer some credit. Silberman.
So, yeah, the neighbors are coming out to the front yard. What's going on? Bunny comes in. She's like, oh, my God, what are we going to do? And Bunny basically breaks down that, like...
And this is a whole thing. There's a whole tension of, is Bunny an ally? Is she an enemy? Is she an ally? Is she an enemy?
And Bunny basically says, you need to leave now.
Yeah.
I know what's happening. I'm sorry. I don't even know if she says I'm sorry. She does say that I know this isn't real.
Yes.
And it kind of comes out that Alice is like, well, why would you ever choose to be here? And Bunny admits that, like, her children are dead in the real world.
Yeah.
But here she gets to be with her children. And it's a kind of weird, sad hysteria that Bunny's going through.
Yeah.
Where she probably enjoys living in the dream that this is all real. And now she has to be kind of forced to reconfront it again.
Yeah.
And so she... basically takes it as a moment for like, Alice, run, go, get out of here. If you want to get out, you need to leave now because Frank knows that Jack is dead.
Yeah.
Because when you die in this world, your brain activity ceases to exist, so your body will die as well.
Yeah.
And so Jack is dead. The men in the red jumpsuits are coming for you. If you want to escape, you need to drive back to HQ.
Yeah.
And go through the portal and wake up in the real world.
Yes.
And so basically, Alice hysterically runs out. I don't know if hysterically is the right word, but she leaves the house. Nick Kroll tries to ascertain her.
Nick Kroll gets wrecked.
Yeah. She dodges him, gets in the car.
Dean is the character's name.
Dean, thank you. Dean, yes. Dean basically bounces off the car. Wow.
Which, by the way...
That was fantastic. I love that he did the stunt. I'm glad that he did the stunt.
Some of the stunts in this movie, I had strong thoughts about.
But I
think they were done in an almost slapstick way, and it really took me out of the thriller aspect of it.
Yeah.
Nick Kroll getting absolutely bodied just didn't work.
Which that was
so
him, right?
levels.
Am I crazy? It looked like it was actually him.
He might have actually done... It's interesting. I'm trying to think on a $20 million movie. Maybe. It might have been. That seems a little... I don't know how old he is. That seems like a bad... Like, unless you're... The only guy at that age doing that kind of stuff is Tom Cruise, really.
Yeah.
Doing your own stunts. And people older than that trying to do their own stunts, Harrison Ford, people get injured.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it was really him.
So he bounces off the car.
We'd have to rewatch the scene to see the cuts. I don't know.
He bounces off the car, and this weird supernatural thing kind of happens where suddenly everywhere she looks, there are men driving after her.
Yes.
And men either who live in the community or men who are in jumpsuits driving after her.
There's some men having like just meltdowns too.
Yes.
Because they know the reality that they've paid for and constructed for themselves is breaking down. I guess that's why they're upset.
And it's suggesting that all the neighbors in the cul-de-sac, all the wives are realizing that this isn't real, which I feel like is like kind of a huge leap in logic.
I don't know that that's what I felt like. They're suggesting that they're just confused. Like maybe they're like.
Here's the thing: watching the film, they all look confused. But reading the plot on Wikipedia, the plot, which I don't know, like did Warner Brothers?
No, I agree. It's a big leap. It's a big leap at the last minute. It's a big leap. We haven't built up to that.
How could anybody, like, gather that kind of information through a 30-second fight on the front lawn?
On the fly.
You know?
Yeah.
That their entire paradigm is false. Like, what?
Yeah, no, they're not.
Nor would they accept it if it was the case.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's driving for her life. And by the way, the sexiest car ever. I do not know what that car maker model is.
Yeah.
It was incredible. She's driving as fast as
It's the car that Jack is seen driving earlier, too. Yeah.
So basically, Alice is fighting to escape. Can we kind of speed through this part?
Yeah.
She drives through the desert. Dr. Collins rolls up. He gets into a crash and basically explodes into other vehicles in a fiery crash. She escapes, keeps driving, eventually gets to HQ. HQ, which we didn't outline before, basically has a spiraling roadway up to the top, so she's driving all the way up. The car gets stuck on the side.
Someone's up. Who's up here? You good? Gabrielle? Cool. You were on a roll, man.
Test 1 2. Anybody can hear me? Yeah.
We're back. We had to take a break. We had to move cars around and shit.
Yeah, just
if you can believe it.
Little
sidetrack shit. Let's get back on track, though. I mean, are you ready to rip?
Yeah. So basically, long story short, we're finally getting to the very, very, very
end
of the film, and Alice.
Nick Kroll gets wrecked.
Nick Kroll gets wrecked.
He gets bodied. Twice, though, by the way. Twice.
It's true.
He gets wrecked by someone fucking bodies him. Is it Bunny? Does Bunny wreck him?
I don't think so.
He gets physically, like, wrecked and then gets wrecked by the car, too.
I think Alice bodies him.
Which, by the way, I was like, that just comes off as completely comedic in a moment where we need to feel engaged and, like, thrilled. The thriller needs to come into play. And it's like, dude, this feels very slapstick. This feels like... Sorry.
I get
it's frustrating.
it.
It's frustrating. To me, it's frustrating because I'm okay with going full thriller. Especially at the end of the movie, dude. Like,
it's supposed to be the part of the film where, like, you find the skeletons in the basement, or where you find out who the boogeyman is, and it's like... We don't need.
I really do think of Rosemary's Baby and Stepford Wives, 2 movies that, oh my gosh, by the end you're like, holy fucking shit.
Time to go.
Stepford Wives in particular, I find the ending of Stepford Wives more just tense, and I find the ending of Rosemary's Baby more horrific. But so those are different things.
Got it.
End of Stepford Wives though has a great like, holy shit, I gotta get out of here kind of ending, and it's still it holds up anyway.
So yeah, basically, car chase ensues. We spoke about this. Desert, car crash, Dr. Collins blown up, baby.
Dr. Collins also gets wrecked.
Also, Dr. Collins is uncomfortably comedic. He literally has a line that says, "Get them."
Oh, it's brutal. It doesn't work at all.
Thank you. You got paid well for that day. You did good.
So that's why I was very concerned, and I had thoughts on that. I was very concerned about Timothy Simons playing that role. But anyway,
so basically, she goes up the spiral hill.
Yeah.
Her car crashes. She has to climb the rest of the way. Jumpsuit men are all around her. She's trying to get up to the doors. Suddenly, she makes it to the doors.
Yeah.
Is she gonna leave? 2 arms reach around her. It's Jack.
Oh, yeah.
Is it a memory?
Yeah.
Is he real? Is it a programmed version of him? We don't know, but whatever it is, she realizes she can't stay there.
Yeah.
With or without him.
Yeah.
And so she leaves. Cuts to black, and we hear basically like a coming up for air breath.
Yeah.
And it's suggested that Alice wakes up from the simulated world.
Yes. And then...
Technically...
the movie's over.
Yeah, technically the movie's over. The interesting thing is, it almost suggests that she gets away. The problem is, though, is Bunny says, you need to leave now. You need to go. Frank is sending men to you now. When we said that, she wasn't just talking about Frank sending men to their home in suburbia in the desert simulated world.
She means
there
in
are
the real
real
world.
Men in real life coming to her apartment to kill her in her own bed. That, by the way, she is strapped to. How the heck is she going to get out of that bed? I don't know. So her taking that breath kind of tells the audience, like, she survived. She got out. But I'm telling you, and me,
I'm still concerned.
Yeah, not
I'm
all
still concerned.
Not all the loose ends are tied up.
Yeah. You don't think they would do a sequel of this, do you?
The only way they would do a sequel is if she felt the need to go back into the world and liberate other women, which that actually sounds like potentially an opportunity for a better sequel. It does
feel like this ending is lending itself to sequel land.
Huh.
Which is, I don't know if we need a sequel of this, to be honest. But
hey, if a sequel would mean a better script, I'll see it.
I don't
but the... Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, you made it to the end of our summary of the plot, basically. If you've survived 2 hours and 20 minutes of us retelling a story that's 2 hours long. But, yeah, so, Dale,
what's up?
What are your thoughts on this film?
I think, man, I struggled to enjoy it, and I think the reason I struggled to... Not that you need to... The enjoyment aspect of it, movies can be about, and this is the power of the medium, movies can be about gruesome things while you still enjoy the movie, the experience of hence, like Barbarian, right?
Yeah.
Gruesome film, I enjoyed the shit out of that experience, right?
Okay.
And so the enjoyment part, language is, the English language is limited this way. I didn't enjoy this film, and what I mean is, I was never fully invested at any juncture.
Okay.
I was constantly aware that I was in a movie theater watching a movie, and the goal should be for me to be in that world. The goal should be like, I am transported for X amount of time. That's always the goal. The goal is to get people to buy in. The goal is to get people to buy into the experience of watching the film and almost forget that to the extent that they almost forget they're watching a movie.
Yeah. That's
when you're really locked into something, right? And at no point in this movie was I locked in. There's a lot wrong with the script. It doesn't feel like the script fully knows what it wants to be.
Genre-wise?
And tonally.
And plot.
Genre and tone. And plot. And plot.
And character.
And character.
And
there's too many characters in this movie.
I'm sure.
There just are. Like, there are too many characters.
I'm sure the grammar and the vocabulary
was
all well done. I'm sure the English in the script.
Yes.
Solid.
I'm sure. Here's the thing, right? We know Katie Silverman's a good writer. Right? We know that.
She has a track record. Booksmart.
Crushed it on Booksmart. She has other great writing credits. She's a good writer. Hence why Olivia Wilde's going, hey, let's work on our next thing together, right?
Together, yes.
However, I can see Katie Silverman, the writer, wanting the film, and it's interesting that interview, it does feel like Olivia Wilde alludes to this in that interview that we read.
Mm. Go on.
Katie Silverman is out there perhaps wanting the film to be one thing, and Olivia Wilde wants it to be another. And that's a tough...
Olivia Wilde, by the way, was talking about that as a strength, because she is saying as Olivia, as Kate Silverman?
Katie, yeah.
As Katie being her right-hand woman to support her through...
Cool, yeah.
Getting a strong script out, when Olivia wants to get too crazy or things can't be grounded, la-di-da... Katie will bring it back to earth, make things feel light and fun.
Yeah.
And those, where Olivia ventures to say that's a strength, Dale
I don't think it's a strength.
Yes.
I think it's exactly what you shouldn't do. I think the script needs to be what the movie will be. I really believe in that. Great movies, oftentimes the script is kind of basically what the movie will be. And then the movie, of course, you can... The edit is the final rewrite, all that stuff, right? So you're constantly rewriting the script, quote unquote, in a sort of like figurative way. However, it can't be, the writer's on one page, figuratively, and the director's on another. That has never... I don't think that's ever worked. And... So as a result, this movie doesn't feel like it fully knows what it wants to be.
This kind of goes...
The casting feels a little off. Sorry, Nick Kroll. Not sure you should have been in this movie.
Yeah.
Sorry. I keep forgetting the guy's name. Sorry, Timothy Simons.
Yeah.
Dr. Collins. Sorry. I don't know.
Yeah, it's one. Earlier in the podcast, we spoke about tension release cycle earning comedy. And I think it's one of those things, if me and Dale just want to give a quick overview of our thoughts on genre and the way in which many films have been successfully accomplishing lots of laughs in theater with lots of scares. Nope and Barbarian and Bodies, 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 all being previous successful
all good examples,
genre
films that are achieving comedy while
Yes.
achieving the goals of the genre.
For sure. So this film, the casting says one thing. You have some of these like
it does. The casting does, with the
star
exception of
power
Florence,
comedians.
because Florence is a bona fide fucking dramatic actor, as I like to say.
Yeah,
She's an actor. She's not.
But she is funny too.
I'm not saying she's not funny. I'm saying that she is a formally trained. Fucking not that formal training matters. Hold on. Dog, Florence Pugh's on another level. Florence Pugh is...
It's one thing to talk about talent then, as opposed to experience.
I guess
training.
I'm talking about... I'm trying to think of Florence Pugh has been in... So Florence Pugh, I'm thinking of big credits for her.
Okay.
I'm thinking of Midsummer.
Yep.
Which she's excellent in. I'm also thinking of Little Women.
Okay.
Which she's arguably more excellent in than she is in Midsummer somehow.
Okay.
So I'm thinking of those two movies, right?
She's also done some Marvel stuff.
Yes. Not that's the stuff that I haven't seen, to be honest. That's
sure.
just I'll admit my blind spot there.
Right.
But she is a really legit actor. Mm-hmm. Really, really a really strong actor. And you and I said she's excellent in this movie.
She is.
Because she's one of those actors. She's like it's like you see Leo. I've never seen Leo DiCaprio in a movie where I go, he wasn't great. He's always great. She's always going to be great. She's one of those actors.
Yeah.
It's seeming like that's where she's headed. She's always going to be great. No matter what, you're going to enjoy watching her. She's always going to be great.
Yeah.
But the movie, the casting, the script needs to service... Needs to. She can't be great, and then the rest of the movie's out of sync.
Yes.
It's not gonna. The movie won't work.
And this goes back.
She can't put the movie on her back and make it everything it needs to be. That's not how that
This goes back to
works.
another thing, Dale, we're talking about earlier, is the relationships feel thin in this film. It doesn't matter how good Alice is as a performance.
Yeah.
Via Florence Pugh. If the written relationships that run tangentially to her throughout the plot just feel disconnected from the plot, if they feel thin in servicing our protagonist's journey, if they feel like they're performing in different movies even, it's just not going to work.
No.
And that's a big thing for me in this film, is the relationships between all of the characters was just suffering. I felt this film was beautiful in the way in which it looked. The imagery was powerful, interesting, and it all supported the themes of what are happening throughout the story. The potential regressive nature of certain men in modern society who are seeking to subjugate women. Things of that can be very resonant just by the imagery that's used. But unfortunately, for me personally, the imagery is just not enough. And not only is that not
yeah.
enough, it feels kind of like there was more focus put on that than there was in the story.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it.
A good example me and Dale have been talking about throughout the day in the car over the last time before potting is this film ultimately comes down to basically not just a dramatic thriller, but a dramatic sci-fi thriller.
Oh yeah,
and so
absolutely.
A good comparison,
The Matrix.
in terms of films, exactly, is The Matrix. If we want to talk about simulated worlds versus the real world and what each world has to offer, and in regards to this story, The Matrix is a really great comparison because The Matrix has the Wachowski sisters did a lot to build the mythos of the world, the ethos of the world. They apparently approached the actors after casting them with lots of source material, very large treatments.
The Wachowskis go hard, man. They go hard.
A list of books to read because there was they felt a very relevant philosophical underpinnings to the world they were trying to tell.
And religious underpinnings as well.
Yes. And so all of
Like
this...
those, it's same as philosophy, but those are interrelated.
No, for sure,
anyway.
for sure. And so the Wachowski sisters felt it was necessary to communicate all of this to the actors. And they spent months just basically researching and discussing with each other. So they're all on the same page about the movie they're trying to tell. And this film felt like... for a film that was so willing to hold the mirror up to men in society, for a film that was so willing to put the perhaps very up-and-coming virtual reality tech at the stand to really question the value of it and the potential fears that lie in, people being presented a reality that's indiscernible from physical reality. The big picture themes, what I'm trying to get at is The Matrix was really good at getting all the actors on the same board and taking all of those themes, putting them in performances that were supported by a plot. This film feels like there were big picture themes that ultimately the plot was just not really being woven.
There's no cohesion.
It wasn't woven in a way that... There's cohesion in the sense that there's a protagonist that goes from beginning, middle to end.
Yeah.
But that's not enough.
No.
What would be enough is if,
It's not enough these days.
Two big suggestions for me for like story solutions that me and Dale were talking about is one, I think it would be really important to get the real world established earlier, much earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm just ripping off The Matrix. Maybe I need to be more inspired myself. I'm willing to say...
I don't think Matrix Parallel is an interesting one.
I think the big reason, I have... I feel inclined to make a comparison to The Matrix in terms of the way the two separate worlds are established is The Matrix establishes the digital realm.
Yeah.
Within 30 minutes as an inciting incident, which leads to the climax of the first act, reveals the real world and the real nature of the Matrix. And then from there, the question is, what does the protagonist do with that information?
Yeah. Wow, yeah.
In this film, it's basically, what is real, this is real, this is real, this is scary, this is weird, I'm stuck here, but here's all I can be. And then you find out the reality. Guys, I'm telling you, like, an hour and a half into a 2-hour film, and you only get, like, maybe 6 minutes of that real world during the electroshock therapy scene when she's seeing flashes of her real self in the OR room.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's real? Well, okay, I guess, and I feel, a lot of, I see what the filmmakers were going for, that let's create a really uncanny reality that has a massive payoff of she was right the whole time.
Yeah.
But I would have much rather had that moment, which felt more successful to me, that something is wrong. Oh, this is real life. Okay, how am I going to get out of this virtual reality world? How am I going to help other women get out of this world?
Yeah.
It just felt like real life was completely extracted from this, and I don't know. Do you have thoughts on any of this?
I think you're putting it really well. I think as writers, screenwriters always talk about passive versus active characters.
Mm.
And I think you another way of summarizing the Matrix comparison you're making is you're making a great point. Neo learns a bunch of information, and then it's about what does Neo do with that information. In this movie, and I think this was thematically related, but doesn't pay off in terms of the execution. Alice is very, very passive because that's the world she lives in. It's a world of submission, female submission.
Which, to be fair to the... Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I think to be fair to them, that's a theme in the movie.
Yes.
So it's like, of course, she's going to be kind of passive. But I think also when you think broadly about like what creates a great, memorable experience, thrilling, to use like a genre, creates a great, memorable, thrilling, thought-provoking experience for an audience that they want to go back and revisit and rewatch and all these things. In terms of what creates that, I think giving the characters something more active to do for most of the story, I think will probably fare better. If you're trying to reach a wider audience than the route they went, which was Alice is very passive. A lot of things happen to her, and then we later understand why that's the case. But then that begs the question of, well, now that she knows all this and she's able to break out of victory, break out of this faux realm of virtual reality. Once she's able to break out of that, then what happens? Because then you have to imagine she like enters a totally new level of consciousness and level of action. You know what I mean?
Well,
and we don't get to see any of that.
We're completely robbed of that.
Yeah,
like
we don't get to see any of it.
This woman goes through a massive transformation of character and realization and taking action, and I want to see what happens next.
And we don't see any of it.
No, not only do we not see it, but arguably the real-world implications could be far scarier than the virtual implications. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
In the virtual...
I would say they are scarier.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of men out there on the black... I was going to say the black net, but that makes no sense. The black market or the dark web. That's what I'm going for, the dark web.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was a sub-theme in there, but I'm not sure.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think there's a theme per se as the dark web, but what I will say is, one, regarding the implications of this young man on the computer with a audio streaming service that is irrecognizable to most audiences.
Unrecognizable, yeah.
Thank you, unrecognizable.
Yeah.
And the fact that, like, if this world is real, well, who has access to this shit? It's not exactly mainstream or legal. So he must be dabbling in something.
Yeah.
There's something fringe about the way Jack is operating online.
Yeah. He's shady.
He is.
Yeah.
And it's in some ways you could call it. It's a weird virtual form of. This makes me uncomfortable. A weird virtual form of human trafficking.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And you could.
I think the film's getting at that too.
Yeah.
Like that's in there. Yeah.
And I'm willing to bet there is some forms of monetization, like in today's world.
Yes. Yeah.
In today's world, there's. I think they call it. Is it social capitalism? Is the word they use? It's something to the degree, or is it privacy? Something to the degree that capitalism today. Let's not get into economic philosophy, but the idea is there's tech companies that profit off of users unbeknownst to them based on the data that the users provide. And so in this world, yeah, people are basically trafficked into it. They live their lives, and for all we know, the the owners of the realm are taking that information and just selling it, you know?
Yeah. None of the details of that, though, are defined.
They're not
in the
defined.
movie. Like, you're just sort of... You're just taking stabs in the dark.
I am.
Because the movie forces you to take stabs
But
in the
if
dark.
they
Like, it
were
doesn't
defined,
define,
I think they would enhance the fear of what's taking place in the physical reality, and that would have lent to another act when she wakes up, and that would have been interesting to me. I want to put it out there. You were talking about astutely passive versus active characters. I would have found it much more interesting. Well, I say this now. Maybe if I saw it on screen, I wouldn't. I'm proposing that basically I think it would be more fascinating to have Alice realize what's happening, and every time Jack goes to work, she finds a way to go to work as well, quote unquote, wake up. And so now we have this weird real world versus simulated world, where every time she just has to make it her job to get home before he gets back to the VR world.
Yeah.
And so we have two stories happening. We have the virtual reality story, where she's a good girl wife who's operating under the guise of basically a dutiful person. Not to be redundant. She's behaving as he expects her to.
Yeah.
And then in the real world, when he quote-unquote goes to work, she's taking that as an active way to subvert this world. Like, this woman's brilliant. She's a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
She could potentially find ways to help free other women from this prison.
And this does make me wonder if there will be a sequel. Anyway,
I don't know. That's something where I'm just kind of like, again, I know you're not the biggest fan of the word missed opportunities, but in the case of...
I just have a very specific... I just have a connotation with the term.
Yeah, but there's just something about the current presentation of the story where... I gather the filmmakers, when Alice finally makes the decision to take back autonomy in her life, it's supposed to... I keep popping the thing. It's supposed to be triumphant.
And it's not. It doesn't come off that way.
Something feels like almost predictable and boring about it.
This movie chooses theme over character.
Okay.
Kind of again and again. This movie chooses theme over character, and so as a result, we don't feel the triumph, the elation of triumph for the character, for Alice, that we should. Because this movie is just constantly prioritizing theme over character, I think.
Got it.
And that's the most concise way I can put that point.
I think just to backtrack, the second thing that I think would have been a fun alteration, and me and Dale had some fun talking about this, is currently the film builds up Frank to be the big bad antagonist the whole film. And I'm telling you guys right now, if you want to go see the film and figure out what we're talking about or see for yourself, cool. I think Frank is kind of one of the more boring two-dimensional villains I've seen in a while. Every shot shows him in... And again, these are like intentional choices by the filmmakers, and I can appreciate them. When used with craft, like, they are effective. But every shot of him, is kind of angled upward and puts him in like a position of authority. He's always got like weird long eye contact with certain characters. The music... the score really punctuates certain moments with him that suggest a sinister underpinning, and everything I'm trying to paint leads to a two-dimensional villain who we know is the bad guy within 10 minutes of meeting him, and it just for me personally, I find it more interesting when I don't know who the bad guy is for the entire film, and then it's revealed. As like an aha, oh my goodness moment. And so for me, it would have been far more interesting if, A, we establish Frank as somebody we can trust, film. Oh, it's going to be okay. Things are kind of off with Jack, but you can confide in me, kind of thing. And then suddenly finds out that Jack and Frank have been working together the whole time, la-di-da, big baddie revealed. But a more interesting thing, in my opinion, would have been the whole time, Jack, the doting husband, hey, honey, thanks for cooking for me. Hey, honey, I'm sorry you overslept. I'll cook for you. Hey, baby, I'll be back in 8 hours. I'm just going to go to work. Hey, honey, I'm sorry it's been a rough day. I'm looking out for you. No, I'll stand up for you. I know you don't want to take the medication. Yes, I'm excited about this promotion. But, here, let me...
We'll take one final break, and then we'll be right back with our final segment on the Movie Addicts podcast. And we're back.
So basically, I'm proposing that Jack plays the role of, a man who is also subservient to Frank. That he lives in a world where, even though all the wives are subservient to her husband, he too has to play by the rules. He too is in a position of weakness. And at the climax of the film, when it's revealed that Frank's been in control of everything, and everybody's in danger and la-di-da, how terrifying would it be to have it revealed that, by the way, Frank is actually a digital avatar for Jack. Frank doesn't exist. Frank was just something to get all of these men buy-in into this simulated world that Jack has actually created. And Jack, who was set up as a ally to our protagonist, has actually been pulling the strings of the whole time.
Yeah, man.
Which would also, didn't think about this before, would make a really terrifying implication, because if she did kill Jack, who's controlling the simulation now? Now she has to escape before the thing is shut down and she dies inside of it. Like, that would have been...
And, then it's like, she'd probably have to save Bunny.
For sure.
She'd probably have to save the other
That would have been like a
sick,
last 20 minute, we need to get out of here now. Like, the leader of this world is dead.
So many, unfulfilled possibilities in this thing, man.
Totally. And, I get so...
That's a better term. I like that term more. Unfulfilled possibilities, not missed opportunities.
Well done.
But, Gabe, you're making some great fucking points, man.
Yeah,
A lot of unfulfilled opportunities in this film. But here's the thing, right? It did spark an interesting conversation for us about story and about movies and what worked and what didn't work, and
I had
ultimately,
what's it called? I'm sensing a wrap up. Is that what's going on?
Kind of. We're nearing 3 hours here.
Yeah, I know. We're pretty deep right now. What I will say, and it's unfortunate that we haven't been able to tap much into this because we're just so excited about story and things of that nature. This story does attempt to tackle very important social themes that are relevant.
Sure.
Relationship between men and women, the relationship between those in power and those not in power, societal expectations, people being silenced, people being gaslit. There was one moment in the film where, just while we were passively talking earlier, I thought it was interesting. There's a character that gets so excited. Me and my husband, we live in the last rows of the house, and the desert's right next to us. We're the furthest from town. And guess what? They're building another development behind us. Isn't that great that we're going to be that much closer to the center of town?
You're proposing this as an addition to...
This is what someone says in the film.
Which character says this?
I think Peggy says it.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
So just for everyone to be clear, I'm saying what's happening in the
film. This actually happened.
Thank you,
we're moving out of... No, but we're moving out of Gabe proposing story changes land into this actually
me
happened.
Highlighting a moment in the film, which I think... I wanted to highlight a moment of the film, which I think was very smart, and one of the great ways that theme can come out in dialogue. A character says, "Wouldn't it be nice once they build the development behind us that we're that much closer to the center of town?" And Alice replies, "How does that make you closer to the center of town?" Which is kind of hilarious and true, because you're literally not getting closer to town. But what I found interesting is, what does that say about, on a metaphorical, on a universal theme level, what does that say about progress for women? some people see progress transpiring when there's somebody behind you who has less, even though you're never forward moving.
Gabe.
Does that make
Very
sense?
astute. Yeah.
And I thought that was like a really smart way of setting up the world, where some people, they don't understand that someone else's loss is not your gain. That we're still all suffering because none of us are growing closer to the goal.
Interesting. So an interesting, smart piece of writing.
Very smart. Really smart.
Katie,
and I'm sure there are tons of nuggets throughout this story that really do pose smart philosophical questions about how are we going to find more equitable ways to level the playing field, so everybody has the opportunity to reach their aspirations.
And on that note, is this movie a cock-up for you? That was sort of a weird segue. But
this is what's tough. If you want to see a film that has powerful imagery and is intriguing on a thematic level, and you want to see Florence Pugh crush it, go have fun. It's a lockup, la-di-da. But for me personally, after seeing this film, I'm going to call it a cock-up. There were moments where I found myself bored. There were moments where I, unfortunately, was confused. I felt there were unfulfilled opportunities.
I like that new term.
And I ultimately, when the credits rolled, I felt wanting more.
Yeah, this thing's a cock-up for me, unfortunately.
Olivia Wilde, you gave it a good go.
She'll be back.
You put a good team together, and we are looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Listen, not every film can be a hit.
And speaking of hits, this film has actually been making a ton of money back. So this, like, it's not
so far, yeah.
From a monetary and metric level, like, hey, it sounds like it's hitting hard with some people. So
yeah. So anything else you want to add?
Let's think. Next week we're going to be... I guess next week we're doing another film. We hope you guys are enjoying the Movie Addicts podcast. Please like, subscribe.
We always love to say that at the very end when no one's watching.
It's most important. It's most important at this moment.
Yeah, like and subscribe. And this has been the Movie Addicts podcast. I'm Dale.
This is Gabe.
I hope you had a great weekend.
Yeah. We'll see you next week.
See you next time. Spooky season.
Spooky.
If I have to hear another person say spooky season, I'm going to fucking hang myself.
What about spoopy season?
I like that more.
Spoopy.
I like that more. Great.
Ultra spoopy.